1994, the year classic albums such as Parklife, Dogman Star, His and Hers, and Second Coming are released, but not just that of course, one of the most iconic debut albums of all time, definitely maybe. But before all that, we need to go back to a couple of months to January of 1994. So to start with, we have the BBC radio sessions from December 93, due to them being rebroadcast on January 4th of 1994. Now on to the infamous Mono Valley sessions, which happened from the dates 8th of January to 28th of January. Not much of this session has been released to the public, but we currently have Cigarettes and Alcohol, Bring It On Down thanks to the Chasing the Sun Japanese reissue, and of course Slide Away, as that was the album version. Also there was a 12-minute Slide Away which has been left unreleased. Another thing released is of course the Supersonic single cover taken at Mono Valley. Also apparently Noel recorded some Rolling Stone covers there. Cigarettes and Alcohol was released on the bootleg Definitive, and also given away on the NME Mother of All Creation CD. Then it's the first gig of 94, which is at the Water Rat in London on January 27th. Currently we have some footage of Water Rats of only Supersonic and no audio. And uploaded on YouTube by the Oasis Media Archive has dubbed the gig at the borderline to this footage. Now we do have the supposed setlist: Shake and Make a Bring It On Down, Dixie's Dinner, Live Forever, Cloudburst, Up in the Sky, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Supersonic, and I Am the Walrus. Now on to the Sawmill sessions, which took place on February to March, which included Cigarettes and Alcohol, Dixie's Dinner, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Rock and Roll Star, Live Forever, Columbia, Slide Away, and the studio version of I Am the Walrus. So with this tape, this is the generic mixes we've heard before, but the most important thing on here is the I Am the Walrus studio version. To start with, we have guitar noise coming from an amp, then it's full swing, lower I Am the Walrus than what they did live, and I preferred this to the Glen Eagles one that appeared on the Cigarettes and Alcohol single. Genuinely, Liam's vocals are so good. Has been much better than this? I don't think so. So good. Then we have what feels like an eternity of the outro, but apart from that, solid. This was discovered as it was uploaded to the Oasis Collectors Group on January of 2023. This was then later leaked out and is now all over YouTube. Then we talk about the infamous ferry incident, and the gig that was supposed to happen was at the Paradiso on the 18th of February on their way to do a gig with The Verve. I'll speak more about this when I get onto Wimbledon Rivalry. Then it's the first full gig from 94, which is at Glen Eagles in Scotland on March 9th. Before the actual gig, we have the soundcheck with I Am the Walrus, which appeared on the Cigarettes and Alcohol single. Now this version of the song is phenomenal, and it's up there in terms of I Am the Walrus. This was revealed as a soundcheck in the book Getting High by Paolo Hewitt, and an interview with Noel in 1998. Anyways, to start with, we have Shaker Maker, which I believe is one of the best renditions of the song in the history of Oasis, and this sentiment is also felt by a lot of Oasis fans. This is a common theme throughout this gig, with everything being top notch about it. Then on to Bring It On Down, which isn't the best Bring It On Down we've heard, as I think the Hit the North version takes the cake, but still very good, especially with Tony's drumming, as it doesn't get enough credit. Then it's Ye Old Dixie's Dinner, with all the previous stuff said also being present here, except Noel messes on his solo, but it's not too noticeable. Then it's the famed Live Forever. Oh, what I could say about this Live Forever. One of the best, if not the best Live Forever Oasis ever did. There's one part that sticks out in particular with this Live Forever as well. It's the first time he sings Take Two Sugars with the tea, instead of We See Things They'll Never See. Top notch version of Live Forever, definitely one of my favourites, and also the whole Oasis fandom believes it's up there. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol, with there not really being much to say other than are you mad for it? Because I'm mad for it. I'm mad for Liam's voice, and I'm mad for Tony's drumming. The classic voice crack on Alcohol being implemented, and of course Sunshine. Then to finish off, it's Supersonic, the glorious Supersonic, perfect ending to this belter of a gig. Best gig we've heard so far, but there wasn't much contest to begin with. So we've come to the classic bootleg part of it all. So this gig appeared on the bootlegs Glen Eagles 94, Glen Eagles / T in the Park Remaster, Golf Club Gig, The Remains of the Day, and I guess official releases such as the Definitely Maybe DVD, Bring It On Down and Live Forever, which is only on the 2-disc version as part of the bonus disc. Also live at the Glen Eagles Amazon exclusive EP, the Live Forever single, which had the Supersonic from this gig, and finally airing on K-Vox, blasting into the airwaves to Bring It On Down being played. Here's some backstory about certain bootlegs. K-Vox blasting the airwaves was a cassette given with Vox magazine in October 1994 and was billed as live at the Glasgow Cat House June 1994. However, it was actually from the Glen Eagles showcase. Golf Club Gig contains two of this show. The first is sourced from a low generation VHS promo video, then remastered. The second is a raw version, sourced from the VHS promo video. Also, the Amazon EP was released as part of the Chasing the Sun reissues. Now in mid-March, Oasis filmed their first singles music video, which was filmed in London next to King's Cross Station. Now on to their first TV appearance, which was on the Channel 4 programme The Word on the 18th of March 1994. They did a short rehearsal before, which consisted of 4 takes of the same song, that being Supersonic. The rehearsal tape, recorded straight from the VT desk by the crew at Teddington Studios, is the only known copy in existence. The band runs through Supersonic 3 times, and in between there is some chat/jokes between band members. Now on to the actual event, which is Supersonic, but Liam's vocals being good for me. Nothing too crazy, but not bad in any way. Now I believe this version of the song could actually be using the Supersonic TV backing that was in the Whitfield Street sessions. It appeared on the Definitely Maybe DVD and was introduced by Mark Lamar and Terry Christian. Liam films the audience with a cine camera while singing. It was later rebroadcast on the Best of the Word on the 18th of June 1999. Then it's a lost gig at the venue Angel in Bedford on March 24th. The setlist is unknown, but it is probably that the setlist was Shake and Make It Bring It On Down, Dixie's Dinner, Live Forever, Cigarettes, Alcohol, Supersonic, like Glen Eagles and other gigs at the same time. Now it's a gig at the 100 Club on the 24th of March. To start with, we have Bring It On Down, and the way he holds the notes, you're the outcast and you're the underclass, is amazing. Only one word is needed to describe this, and it's mega. A lot of people say this is the best version of Bring It On Down, and I have to agree with them, out of studio at least. Then it's Dixie's Dinner, with the whole song having some of the best of Tony's drumming I've ever heard. Fortunately, Liam doesn't hold all the falsettos, but still, that doesn't take away from this version of Dixie's. Top notch, one of the best I'd say. Then Liam says, this one's for Alan McGee, it's called Live Forever, with Liam's vocals just amazing. Yeah, sure, I'd say Glen Eagles is better, but that doesn't take away from Liam hitting every note perfectly. And the way he holds the You're Gonna Live Forevers at the end is just amazing. Let's all believe, and I know some of you will disagree, but Liam's vocals are better on this than the Hit the North. In terms of playing, nothing goes wrong. This gig is just smooth sailing with that bump with Liam's vocals. Then Cigarettes and Alcohol, with again the way Liam holds notes being amazing, especially on You Gotta Make It Happen, and of course the way he sings is just perfection. Liam then tells the crowd to stop pushing because someone's going to get crushed. Then, like in Glen Eagles as well, he says this is the last song, Supersonic. It's a single, so go buy it. So Supersonic, with again Liam's vocals not missing a note. I mean, it's Supersonic in this early period, so you can't beat it. God, what a gig. Hot take, but I'm going to say that this is actually better than Glen Eagles. Now on to that time, it's about which bootlegs it was on. So it appeared on the Bootlegs 1994 Live, 100 Club / Live in London 94, 100 Years Ago, 100 Club 2021 James Remaster, and The Remains of the Day. Then it's a couple of lost gigs, with the first being at the Forum in Tunbridge Wells on March 26th. The setlist is assumed to be Shake and Make It Bring It On Down, Dixie's Dinner, Live Forever, Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Supersonic. Then it's at the Polytechnic in Oxford on March 27th, with the setlist apparently being Shake and Make It Bring It On Down, Dixie's Dinner, Live Forever, Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Supersonic. Then it's at the Jug of Ale in good old Birmingham on the March 28th, with the same setlist mentioned. Then it's at the Joiners in Southampton on March 29th, the same setlist mentioned previous. Then it's at the Fleece Firkin in Bristol on March 30th, the same setlist mentioned previously. Then it's at Moles in Bath on March 31st with, you guessed it, the same setlist mentioned previously. Then it's at the Lucifer's Mill in Dundee. The setlist was Shake and Maker, Bring It On Down, Dixie's Dinner, Live Forever, All Believe, Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Supersonic. Finally, they were at La Belle Angel in Edinburgh on April 6th with the same setlist mentioned previous. On April 2nd, Liam and Noel did an interview with The Enemy. Here's the transcript. Manc Popstars Oasis, the band that have Creation Records, Alan McGee, it's his, are armed with boots and want to destroy their first Enemy interview. Right, let's get the rumour mongering out of the way, here and now. Yes, Oasis are brilliant. Yes, they're somewhat notorious already. And yes, they're from Manchester. But let it be said once and for all. They never, ever roaded for the Stone Roses. And so back to reality, born as all great bands are, out of the remains of a crap, in this case comprising drummer Tony, bassist Paul and guitarist Bonehead, Oasis came into being when newly recruited singer Liam brought his brother Noel along for a jam. Undeterred by having witnessed a really shit gig at the Boardwalk, Noel offered his songs to the band in rehearsal, Et voila! Naming themselves after just something on a wall, on a poster, or Liam's favourite women's wear shop, and harbouring a common love of the original bands like the Beatles, but disagreeing violently about anything post-1980. Oasis kept their early demos strictly to themselves, which makes Noel's theory about the meeting with Alan McGee being fated seem all the more likely. Having barged their way onto the bottom of the bill at the 18-wheeler show in Glasgow, they unknowingly played to McGee, who turned up unusually and early and was, not to put too fine a point on it, blown away. The band The Creation Impresario talked and everything from music to cars, remembers Noel. After give 5 minutes we all went, fucking hell, that was easy, where's the contract? Even with 20 other mega deals floating around, and the U2 owned Mother Record willing to double McGee's offer, there was no chance of them signing to anyone but the greatest record company in the world. But I don't think Creation let themselves down by not signing a Manchester band for 4 years. No, right move. There was one to sign. They'd probably have got something like the Mock Turtles. Is there a rebirth of interest in Manchester? There's a definite vibe, says Liam. Like something's happening, but I don't think it'll be a big burst, or even not to be a party of a scene. They see themselves as a Manchester band, and like to think there's room for something from everywhere in them. Are they worried about living up to the expectations? Noel shakes his head. It'll be apparent when Supersonic comes out. Then it'll all be, way hey, from there. And Noel isn't wrong judging by the recent performance on The Word, where the Oasis formula, sneering vocals, blatant arrogance, and melodic genius simply shone beside the studied crapness of Soul Asylum. He also rates the band higher than the latest wave of raves. These bands that claim to be punk rock, they just totally missed the point, says Noel. They're all going out on about the Clash and slogans and taking speed and all that, but they're dead uptight about it. For me, punk rock was the Sex Pistols, and they were big time fun. They covered the Small Faces and Chuck Berry, and Johnny Rotten went to Desert Island Discs in 1977, and all he played was Neil Young. The thing with these punk bands is that it's all dead segregated. We like the Clash, and we don't like anyone else. The Pistols were a fucking laugh, and that's what it's all about. While giving equally short shrift to retro pop stars, Noel cites Verve Acetone, Grant Lee Buffaloes, Fuzzy, and Beck's Loser as current favourites, even vowing to emulate the latter, Slackers. Breakdancing as Top of the Pops performance by body popping when they get on there, and Oasis will set those videos now. Then here's a gig we actually have a recording of, which is at the Tramway in Glasgow on 7th of April 1994. To start with, it's Suit Shaker Maker, which is mega. Yeah, sure, you could say Liam's vocals aren't the best that they could be, which I agree with, but you can't grumble with a bit of Shaker Maker. He's really good when holding the note of. Then it's Daisy's Dinner, as always, which again you could say isn't Liam's best vocal performance, but the way he holds and even sings the notes is great. Nothing really wrong with this version of Daisy's, although there are definitely better versions. Then it's Live Forever, which Liam declares just hello to me ma'am if she's listening. Now Liam's voice is definitely massive. Yeah, sure, the first 2 songs were rocky, if you could even call it that. But yes, his voice is definitely rock and roll mental now. He sings the You and I Are Gonna Live Forever's deeper, probably because Liam didn't like how he sounded when he went high. I don't know. Also, the way Liam holds the Gonna Live Forever part is amazing. Up there with the others we've heard so far. Let Cigarettes and Alcohol with, yes, some issues with Liam's voice being present. I don't know, I guess his voice was just being weird at this gig, but still he sounds mega. 94 Liam could never sound bad, just mediocre. Then finally it's Supersonic, which has this psychedelic sound to it, like I Am the Walrus when they performed it. Again, same stuff with Liam's vocals, but genuinely overall this is a really good gig. 8.5 to 9 out of 10 I'd say. So this gig appeared on the Bootlegs 1994 Live, with an intro and outro from Joe Wiley. It also appeared on A Year in the Life, but that only featured Supersonic and was listed as New York, July 1994. It also appeared on Rock and Roll Stars, Slide Away, which didn't have Supersonic, Definitive, Black on White, Sonic Soul, and it also had a Radio 1 rebroadcast on the 31st of March 1997, which has no Shaker Maker. On the same day, Liam and Noel recorded the iconic Wibbling Rivalry interview. If you don't know what this is, it's basically an interview in which Liam and Noel are arguing after Liam got deported out of Amsterdam due to a fight on a ferry and missed an important gig with important music executives being present. So some context, basically Noel was asleep whilst this fight was taking place, hence why he's angry at Liam. Liam was passing over forged £50 notes to get booze and stealing bottles of wine from the brig. Also, Tony was doing it with a German woman, and a German asked Liam if he saw his wife, and Liam told him to fuck off. Then after that, a fight ensues, and Liam and the rest of Oasis, except Noel, get arrested and later deported. A photo of Noel next to a sign stating the gig exists, with it clearly showing that they were supporting the Verve. The interviewer mentioned them having the reputation of rock and roll party animals. It took place at the Fort Crest Hotel in Glasgow around midnight. The interview was released in 1995, so I'll talk about that in the next part. Then it's a lost gig at the Arena in Middlesbrough on April 8th with the same set list as the others. Then it's a cancelled gig at the Adelphi in Hull on April 10th, which was rescheduled for April 29th. Then it's a lost gig at the Wheatsheaf in Stoke on April 11th with the Supersonic Tour setlist. Then it's finally the release of the Supersonic single on the same day. So the track list was Supersonic, Take Me Away, I Will Believe Live, and Columbia White Label. So to start with, we have Supersonic, which has to be one of my favourite Oasis songs of all time. That blaring riff at the start lets you know about to get yourself into, and with lyrics such as I need to be myself, I can't be no one else, and I'm feeling supersonic, give me gin and tonic, you can't go wrong. Then it's Take Me Away, which to me it's quite strange for this era, not as rock and roll as you'd expect for this era, but my god it's a good song. A person wants to go to somewhere where the grass is green and the air is clean, which is quite symbolic as usually in the UK, and specifically Burnage where Noel grew up, it isn't known for the best conditions. The title itself also encapsulates this, as the person doesn't want to live where he lives anymore. Then it's I'll Believe, which is the version from the Hit North sessions. Anyways, the song it has a blaring guitar riff, which is reminiscent of songs like Do You Know What I Mean and Stand By Me. It has lyrics such as I'm locked up in chains for the rest of my life, being bound by the working class background, and I'll Believe meaning that they still have hope. And then it's Columbia White Label, which I talked about in the previous part. Now let's talk about the international track lists. So first we have the 12-inch UK single not having a white label but having the rest. The European single CD only having Supersonic and Take Me Away. The Japanese EP CD being locked and loaded with no Take Me Away but instead having Supersonic, Shaker Maker, Columbia White Label, a live 8-track demo, Do You Want to Be a Spaceman and I Will Believe. The US promo CD had a Supersonic radio edit and the LP version. Finally, the US cassette had Supersonic and Slide Away. Now on to how it charted. In Australia it charted 122. In Europe Hot 100 Singles it charted 92. In France it reached 33. In Ireland it reached 24. In Japan it reached 81. In New Zealand it reached 28. In Scotland it reached 35. In the UK Singles chart it reached 31. In the UK Indie chart it reached 22. In the US Alternate Airplay, it reached 11. In the US Mainstream Rock, it reached 38. In the US Commercial Alternate Cuts, it reached 7. In the US Alternate Hot 50, it reached 9. In the US Rock Tracks, it reached 43. And finally, on the year-end chart of US Alternative, it reached 62. In the UK, it reached Platinum with 600,000 sales. Then another lost gig, which was the Duchess in Leeds on April 12th. Then it's at the Lomax on Liverpool April 13th, which has some footage in the form of cigarettes and alcohol. Not too much to say other than it's great. This was released by Rolling Stone and it's believed that the whole show was taped and it's just never been released. Then it's an interview Noel has with Craig Cash on Signal Radio. Mick Dude said this about this interview in particular, which happened on April 15th. Great early interview with Noel just before it all kicked off. Noel still wants it all at this point, and Craig is confident that he's going to get it. Supersonic has just been released, but is yet to chart. Then sometime during this break, they recorded the Shaker Maker video in Burton Road, Manchester, nearby the Gallagher's childhood home. The field they are playing football in is Disbury Tock H Sports Ground in Fog Lane, Disbury, in South Manchester. Then it's an interview with Alice Nutter on a BBC Radio 1 evening show during a segment named Smash or Trash on April 25th. Now it's them on GLR Studios during the morning show on April 27th. So it starts with a chat with Liam and Noel and Lucy Longhurst, where they are confused why the rest of the band haven't entered and that they're just waiting outside. Liam jokes that they recorded Supersonic in 8 hours because they had their Weetabix. It's mainly just small talk, like if they had a sister, would they let them play on a tune, with Liam and Noel saying no. The rest of the band pile in as they start to play Supersonic acoustically. So Supersonic starts with this very soft and the vocals perfectly match. It's a strange version of the song, with it not so rock and roll, but genuinely I love this version. Liam's voice is just raw and the sound just gives off that raw vibe, which I just love. Then some more chatter with them talking about creation and the release of Supersonic. Lucy then plays Take Me Away as she says that she forgot what they asked for her to play. Then they start talking about Noel's guitar, with Noel saying it looks a bit Elvis Presley. Lucy then asks for them to play a song and they pick Digsy's Dinner. It's another acoustic version with Liam's vocals having that same rawness, which is just amazing. It's very chilled, which I think definitely works for Digsy's. Then some outro chat with Lucy asking if they can cook, which they reply they can't. This was on the bootlegs 1994 Live with only Supersonic and Digsy's, Undrugged with only Digsy's, Definitive 2 with Digsy's first and then Supersonic, Supersonic Pop Reaction with only Supersonic and Digsy's, with the ones on Supersonic Pop Reaction being mislabelled as being from a Mark Lamar session. Then there's some lost gigs, with the first being the Adelphi in Hull, April 29th, as the original date was cancelled. The setlist: Shake and Make a Fade Away, Digsy's Dinner, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Supersonic, I Am the Walrus. Then at a university in Coventry on April 30th with the same setlist. Then it's a Wedgwood Rooms in Portland on May 2nd with the same setlist. Then it's another BBC session in Maida Vale, but this time it's with Mark Lamar. This was recorded on May 3rd. It has an acoustic of Supersonic which sounds just like the one on GLR, Morning Show, and Married with Children with a similar sounding way Liam sings to the GLR show. This appeared on the bootlegs Definitive 2, A Year in the Life, Undrugged with Supersonic copied twice on the track list, but it's the same recording. Slide Away, Supersonic Pop Reaction with only Married with Children, Bologna, Palaceport, 97 and Glasgow Cat House. Then on the same day they do a gig at TJ's in Newport. The setlist of Shake and Maker, Fade Away, Digsy's Dinner, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Supersonic and I'm the Walrus. Then at the Warehouse in Derby on May 4th with the same setlist. Then at Charlotte in Leicester on May 6th with the same setlist. Now on to the Old Trout in Windsor on May the 7th, which is my birthday, so I guess that's something. Also, it's the first gig we have a recording of, which has the post-Supersonic setlist. It starts with Shake and Maker, so nothing new there, and a common theme of this gig is very good, with nothing being majorly out of place, or Liam's voice fucking up majorly. Good version of Shake and Maker, I say. Now it's a new song on the setlist, which is Fade Away, and what a version. Liam's voice, you can tell, is just on it. I love Liam's voice on Fade Away normally, but this is a different entity. Check this one out if you're going to listen to anything from this gig. Then it's Digsy's Dinner with a roaring intro and all of the stuff I said previous. Then it's Live Forever, which has again a roaring opening riff and the vocals are top notch. Let's Bring It On Down with some crazy drumming from Tony. Also Liam's vocals, like always, are just amazing. Then it's Up in the Sky and what a performance. Everything is perfect from the drumming to the guitar and to the singing. This is what's known as the best version of Up in the Sky by some. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol with Liam declaring it's cigarettes and being on stage. Now everything in this version has been present through what I've said previous, so I won't dwell on this version. Only thing to note is that on the second white line, Liam does voice crack. Then Supersonic with a faster drum beat compared to normal, and Liam shouts fucking mega just before the riff kicks in. Again, the vocals are very good, probably not the best we've heard on Supersonic, but definitely not bad by any means. Now finally we have the first recorded live performance of I Am the Walrus. Again, all the stuff I said previous being the same, and that overdrawn outro for I Am the Walrus. Bonus bit, but in March 2021, a copy of the contract for this gig was put for auction by Hanson's Auctioneers in Derbyshire. Now some more lost gigs, which each have what I like to call the Shake and Make a Tour setlist, which was the one I mentioned previously. So it starts with a gig at the Roadmenders in Northampton on May 8th, then it's on May 10th at the Arm and Navy in Chelmsford, then on May 11th at the Boat Race in Cambridge, then on May 13th at the venue New Cross in London, then on May 14th at the Lead Mill in Sheffield, and finally an appearance on May 15th at the Creation Undrugged press conference in London. And that's it on radio, which if you remember from the last part, it appeared, and you're probably like, well, this doesn't make sense. I think it's either a rebroadcast or it has conflicting dates and has dated May 31st of 1994 or the 93 date. There's something I forgot to mention in the first part was the Married with Children from that session, so I'll tell you about it now. So the playing on Do You Wanna Be a Spaceman is fine, and the acoustic guitar used definitely fits the song. Then it's some more or less gigs, with the first being at Edwards 8 in Birmingham on June the 1st. Then it's at the University of Cardiff on June 2nd. Then it's at the Island in Ilford on June 3rd. Then they were live for the Creation and Drugged event at the Royal Albert Hall in London on June 4th. They're introduced but not by Alan, but by Alan's uncle, as Alan couldn't make it. They are dubbed as the reason to believe in rock and roll. Then it's Live Forever with Noel on vocals, and it's surprising. It's amazing to hear Noel singing Liam's songs before 1960-97. He's of course quite low, but the whole song is actually just really good. He sings the fabled line, "Take 2 sugars in the tea," which just makes me really happy, and I don't know why. It's strange hearing Noel do it, as I'd only ever heard Liam do it up until this point, where I heard this gig. Then it's Shaker Maker with Noel once again on vocals. The way he sings Shake Along With Me is very Norman, and now he's sung it later, and I prefer that a bit more of his voice is actually in it. We hear applause just before the pause between Then You Know It's the Right Time and Shake Along With Me. He also sings I'd Like to Buy You All the Coke to Keep You Company. He also sings Now We All Drink Pepsi. Both tracks are Noel and Bonehead on acoustic, as Liam bladed a sore throat, but was apparently still soaking from the stage divers at the Ilford Island the night before. Whatever was also played, but has sadly never surfaced on a recording. It appeared on Supersonic Reaction, A Year in a Life, Undrugged, Rock and Roll Stars, and the Glasgow Cat's House. On the same day, they did an interview with NME saying this: "How time flies, folks. 1 minute you're a small band with your debut single in the shops, a battered old van driven by your battered old guitarist, and a novel line in hotel redecoration. Next thing you know, you're Chris Evans' best mate, you're awash with cash and awards, and even your heroes think you're a god." So let's hark back to June 1994, when an emergent Oasis went on the road, and Simon Williams discovered a band that wanted the world, and got it. "My hating ruins, sort of shit. You're a mad cunt, you are. No, you're a mad cunt." It all started off normally enough. A quiet Monday evening in Portsmouth, a sold out gig for Oasis, followed by a drug pilgrimage, and a crap student party on the outskirts of town. Then back to the hotel for a few swift nightcaps. Simple, eh? In the bar, Oasis bumped into East 17, fresh from their own gig at the Guildhall. "Are you Blur?" demanded East 17. "No, why? You take that," came the stroppy reply, while the Walthamstow Terriers wisely retired to their various rumpus rooms. Oasis settled down in their bar with a gin and tonic, or 10. There was merciless rubbing of any roadie with more than a passing interest in Manchester United, crowned champions earlier that evening, much to the disgust of the Pro City band. Then a bottle of champagne or two appeared on the table. Then the barman made the terrible mistake of abandoning his post. At this point, some drinkers would notice his departure and wonder how long he'd be, imagining wistfully all the alcohol they could purloin in the interim. Oasis don't imagine, they just do. Before you could say, "Bugger me, free booze," 2 of the entourage were scrambling over the bar, emptying the fridges and passing the bounty over the counter. 1 minute later, 50 bottles of beer were being stuffed under chairs and into innocent bags. Then things got really strange. Guitarist Paul Bonehead Arthurs decided to go for a dip in the horribly convenient pool next to the bar. The Gallagher brothers, Noel and Liam, decided to have a scrap about an ex-girlfriend. Allegedly, expletives started flying, then punches started flying, then bottles of beer started flying, then furniture started flying. Bassist Paul Grigsy McGuinion valiantly tried to separate the Gallaghers, receiving 2 knuckle sandwiches from his endeavours. Someone started throwing chairs at Bonehead in the pool, then tables. Liam had Noel on the floor. Noel tore Liam's shirt off. Other residents, tiring of the mass brawl downstairs, started coming out onto their balconies and shouting abuse. One particularly aggrieved sort was accompanied by his girlfriend. While her lover's attention was focused on the mayhem below, she would calmly open her towel to show Oasis either nothing very much at all, or everything, depending on your perspective. At this juncture, the pissed up band would roar their encouragement, causing the baffled boyfriend to turn and find his demure-looking companion safely covered by the towel. Then he'd shout more abuse, and she'd flash again. And so it went, with a few more punches thrown here and a few more of items of furniture thrown there. Eventually, at around 6 o'clock in the morning, the night porter appeared to tell the fuzzy thrill seekers that, actually, if it was alright with them, he was going to knock off because, someone had called the police. It is common knowledge that hotels are utterly brilliant places. Let's face it, if you get smashed off your nuts in the confines of your own home and gleefully decide to trash your living room prior to catching a bit of shut-eye, are the cleaning pixies likely to rearrange the furniture into some kind of special order while your hangover works itself into a midday frenzy? Nope, you just wake up to discover that somehow World War III had kicked off during the night and your house is in a state of blitz. But hotels being hotels, when Oasis shamble into the bar the following lunchtime, apart from the occasional dark stare from receptionists, life is back to normal. Stunningly overpriced pots of tea are being drained, Liam and Noah comparing the wounds and laughing about their fight, the swimming pool has been cleared of chairs and boneheads, and everyone logical decides it was the hotel's fault. It's a stupid place to put a pool in it, frowned Liam. It was asking for trouble, putting us in this hotel. It's true, nods Noel, wisely. Those plate glass windows are just saying, throw a chair at me. We're not for a bar bill, totaling £150 or so, the odd bruised ember, so much chinking noises emanating from a large black bag through the foyer out to the van. You could almost assure yourself that nothing happened. Still, we don't need a rider, sneers Liam, waving carelessly at the departing baggage. We can just go in and say, Newport, you can stick your ass. This is life on the road, Oasis style. You may not think it's big or clever, but it is rock and roll bonkers. This becomes screamingly apparent when lounging around the hotel lobby, preparing for the drive to Newport. While most sane people are dreaming of a world with no spirits and a nice weekend on a health farm, lest their livers quit and their brain implode. Bonehead studies the tour itinerary and suddenly yells, fucking brilliant. The curfew at the venue tonight is 1:30. Oh good. Our task is to follow Oasis around the country for 3 nights, from Portsmouth, Wedgwood Rooms to Derby Warehouse, via Newport TJ's and points in between. In this time, various people will threaten to leave the band to set up haberdasheries. The band will threaten to leave. Several people in several sentences will most leave. Everyone. Liam, Noel, Griggsy Bonehead and drummer Tony McCarroll, fueled by little more than raging testosterone, Big Mac's gin and tonic and whatever powders dust their nasal passages, will play splendid sold-out gigs, abuse more hotel staff and talk utter brilliant bollocks. Like about the time they stunned half of Manchester by appearing on The Word, a full month before the Supersonic single was released. Paulie Yates was up for a bit of sorting out. According to the ever-charming Liam, Oasis once again made friends in their own inimitable style. Bonehead had his arm around Hufty, recalls Noel, with a sad shake of his head. He was shouting in her ear, what are you into birds for, anyway? Then he started licking her head, right in the middle of the bar. It's hard to tell when the on-the-road psychosis actually kicks in, such as the all-pervading air of insanity from one day. This is the second nationwide jaunt by Oasis, the first being a co-headline with Whiteout. And beneath the manic exterior and the swaggering, crowd-shagging arrogance that dictates that they think they really, really are the best band in the entire galaxy, Oasis are freaked. Totally. The first date was in Hull, where there were people turned away than actually allowed in. The promoter eventually threw open at every door of the venue. The building was swarming with would-be punters peering in, striving to get even the smallest piece of the action. Then 200 punters were turned away from the Coventry gig, where mass stage diving was the order of the night, so much so that Noel, possibly being as sensible as he'll ever be on this tour, suddenly has the diamond idea of, escaping unscathed. So halfway through the last song, he hands his guitar to a roadie and, with the legendary jazz, I'm fucking getting out of here, heads towards the dressing room. I had to climb onto the PA to escape, he winces. Someone's trying to untie my laces, and someone else is grabbing hold of my trouser leg. I get to the dressing room just as the crowd is spilling onto the stage. 3/4 of an hour later, the rest of the band appear and they look as though they've been in a fight. They were mobbed, the crowd wouldn't let them go. It was fucking hysterical, like Beatlemania or something. We expected the gigs to be full. He admits warily, so we could be arrogant and say, oh yeah, but I tell you man, we're more shocked than anyone. It's like we've only had one record out. What's it gonna be like when we get an album out? There's a great, probably entirely mythical story which sums up Oasis perfectly. After all, the band were arrested on the ferry to Amsterdam a couple of months back. Creation's president Alan McGee took the group's press officer to one side and said, fucking hell man, I've been trying to make a teenage fan club interesting for 5 years. Look what you've landed here. Fact is, Oasis are a dream come true. They fight, they flirt, they fucking go mental. And they make music that creeps through your intestines, squeezes your kidneys and proposes to your heart. Probably, they are so obvious that the more manipulative record company sorts should be leaping off of their high-rise ledges in droves, because Oasis, with their housing estate backgrounds, their working-class clumsiness and semi-genius pop sensibility could never be invented in a million units. To put it simply, as Stone Roses once said, Oasis are what the world have been waiting for. Which funny enough takes us to Newport, where Noel is comforting yet another G&T in the pub, around the corner from the hotel. The fact that this particular hostelry has so many games it resembles a boozer's indoor sports centre and thus leads to all manner of theories. Vis-a-vis whether people in Newport actually talk to each other is only marginally interesting. What is fascinating, however, is that the posters advertising tonight's gig proclaim Oasis plus very special guests, with the Stone Roses supposedly recording a few miles up the road in Rockfield. It doesn't take a Nobel Prize winner to hazard a guess that the Manchester of yesterday is going to make an appearance next to the Manchester of today. Noel laughs off the idea that the Roses intend to play, although subsequently rumour mongers insist that Geffen had phoned TJ's a few days before to book the slot for Ian's Browns bunch. Yet you can't rid yourself of the feeling that, in the absence of the Roses and the Happy Mondays, there is a massive demand for a cocky, rocking, PC shocking Manc band, and that is Oasis. It's like you get a band like Suede, Ponders Noel, and they write pretty decent music and all that, but Brett Anderson's lyrics are basically a cross between Bowie and Morrissey, and I don't think that some 16-year-old on the dole is going to understand what he means by animal nitrate or whatever. The thing about Smiths is that Johnny Marr was a lad, and you knew he was a rock and roller. That's why I got into them, and I think a lot of kids find Suede too intellectual, while with Blur they don't understand all that stuff about sugary tea, but with Oasis, like the Roses and the Mondays, it's the bottom line. Here's a guitar, here's the songs, you have them. We're not preaching about ye old England or how it was in the 60s. We're not preaching about our sexuality. We're not telling people how to act. You want to write about shagging and taking drugs and being in a band. You don't want to write about going down the supermarket or anything like that. I know it's terrible, so I'm not going to write about it. I met a girl the other night and I felt really sorry for her, because she came to me and said, I've got Supersonic and I'm really into your lyrics, and I've been through a lot as well. And I went, what do you mean? Supersonic is about some fucking 9-stone geezer who got charlied off his nut one night. It's not about anything. It's just about a feeling. You just get up and play it. All I know is the gigs are selling out, and we're probably going to get loads more trouble on this tour. I always talk a lot of bullshit. After the Portsmouth gig, Liam insists that he's going to sort out E17 because he alleges they've ripped off Imagine. Half an hour later, the singer is insisting that all he wants to do is sit down with E17, neck a few beers, and sort out how they can topple Take That. The same applies for Noel when he's told that Manic Street Preachers are coming down to the Newport gig. Do they want to fight? Asked the guitarist. Nah, the Manics don't fight, comes the answer. Right beans, Noel. The beauty is much like all the hormone raging banter about shagging and birds. Oasis are never actually doing anything. All mouth and no trousers. They're simply on a half-drunk, half-addicted crusade to mollycoddle their audiences into believing that Oasis are the Nats knackers. Simplicity is the key. Newport, much like any other set on the tour, is utterly straightforward and unnervingly familiar. There's the Coca-Cola song, the one that sounds a bit like the Blur song, The Wham song, a cover of I Am the Walrus, and no bleeding encores, is the history of rock splattered over the past 30 years from the Beatles to the Mondays, played by 5 blokes who scarcely move a muscle on stage, who barely communicate between songs, and who barely likely to rival Bad Boys Inc. in the Woof Woof Down Boy stakes. And if you believe Oasis are adhering to some sort of genius game plan, then Noel's confession that he'd love to dance around on stage. But if he were to do that, he'd have to concentrate on playing muscle on stage rather than playing guitar, because to find out he isn't that good will blow any conspiracy theories out of the water. Fact is, far from swanning through the ranks to run rampant in the Fab 40 with the debut single, the Oasis success is an accident. They were just an indie band before I joined, explains Noel. It was alright, it just wasn't rock and roll, but the bassist looked good, the drummer didn't look too bad, and our kid looked pretty fucking cool. At the time I was a roadie and I thought, fuck me, it's looking me in the face. So I bowled into the practice room one day and said, right, change that guitar, take them shoes off, cut your hair, I'm going to be doing this from now on. And they just looked at me and said, oh, alright then. So Noel took control of the band, injected it with the requisite of rock and roll spirit, played the other stuff like by T-Rex, The Faces and Bacharach, started writing all the songs, insisted that the band rehearsed 3 times a week, including Saturday nights, and then nothing happened. We were actually trying to convince people we were great, sighed Noel, but after the first 4 gigs in Manchester, no one would put us on, because we had this reputation for being, not lads, just difficult. We had a fight with the headlining band one night because they pulled the plug on us during the last song. That's when it started, because loads of A&R men had come to see this other band and they saw them have this massive scrap on stage with us. It got us a bit of reputation. It's like McGee saw us by accident in Scotland and he says, have you got a record deal? And we said no, and he said, do you fucking want one? I'm the president of Creation Records, so I said, aha, so it's your fault then, is it? You twat. And he says, what do you mean? And I said, Sean and Knife is your fault, it's all down to you, son. Now naturally the phone doesn't stop ringing, Manchester rumours abound, and Oasis don't give a fuck. That city done us no favours, man, shrugs Noel defiantly. As well he might, because ultimately Oasis have rolled along under their own steam. In Cigarettes and Alcohol, Liam sings, you've got to make it happen, and in a very real sense, that line could be taken as the band's short, sharp sense manifesto. Noel reckons that he hasn't had a day off since the previous October. In a recent 2-week break between tours, the rest of the band went home, while the guitarist stayed in London doing press and mixing the album. So it's little wonder he's letting his hair down, raving about enjoying yourself, about making the most of it while you can, and taking in the smell of the crowd while the fans can still get close to you. It's all known, no one's seen it before, he insists. The next tour will be even better because we'll have another record out. Then there might be ambulances at our gigs. He knows that this is the optimum time for really appreciating why you're in a band, when you're buzzing on your newfound infamy, when all the gigs are packed out, when the crowds are all singing along, even though only a minuscule part of the set has actually been released. And better still, Noel Gallagher knows precisely how fucking ridiculous the entire situation is. Who'd have the bollocks to release a first single like Supersonic, with lyrics such as about Alka-fucking-Seltzer, he rants, waving his G&T around. I just hope that some bands read those lyrics and goes, what does it mean, man? While the guy who actually wrote it is in a pub somewhere, pissed as a fucking twat. Music for me at the moment is dead. It's poncy and serious, and everything's gotta make some sort of statement, whether it be about park life or their feminine side of their politics. But we're a rock and roll band. We say all you need is cigarettes and alcohol. Everyone's dead into analysing, but don't analyse our band. That's a good song, that is. What does it mean? Who gives a fuck what it means? It's a shaker maker. Naturally, it's the new Oasis single, and it's kind of something to do with Mr. Fluffy guy who sells soft mints by wobbling into lampposts, and Mr. Ben's in there as well as a load of other characters, and Noel says that more than anything else, it just makes him laugh. There hasn't been any 12-bar blues in the charts for as long as I can remember, and I don't think anyone's ever sung about plasticine and Coca-Cola in the same song. One for us. That is, get it in the charts. Like I said before, it's just a feeling. If you sit down and think, why do I like this band so much? Well, the singer's an arrogant git. I'd like to twat him one, and the rest of the band might as well be cardboard cutouts. So you end up thinking, I don't like fuck all about this band, but the songs, aren't the songs fucking great? A few more things you may or may not need to know about Oasis on the road. Already a seasoned autograph campaigner, Liam has sussed the signing fans' jests is a daft idea because cleavage, perspiration, prevents your pen from working properly. Whenever 2 or 3 of Oasis are gathered around the piano, they will bang out a cheery version of "Wouldn't It Be Nice to Be a Fucking Cockney? Wouldn't it be nice to be in a fucking blur?" slag, and Newport witnesses some serious psychological collapse. It may be something to do with the manner in which Oasis valiantly attempt to get a goodly proportion of the TJ's crowd into the hotel after the gig, dispensing with the trite formalities traditionally deployed to convince suspicious hotel staff of their guests' worth. Liam harangues and argues the night porter until the poor bloke's left with the choice of opening the front doors or being chased around by drunk Mancunians. It may then be something to do with the 6-hour drinking session that ensues in, spookily enough, the hotel's Oasis bar. Whatever the following morning is a sad sight for bloody sore eyes. Bonehead has trashed his room. You can tell this by the way the morning staff patiently file in from the street carrying paraphernalia. Bonehead would have thrown the bed out as well, but it was too big. Now he's sitting in the lounge with a transparent shower cap on his face, muttering, "I can't do it anymore." There's no such word as can't, a worryingly wise Gwigsy informs his colleague. "But I can't," howls Bonehead. "I'm giving up this rock and roll business. I'm gonna be a Tory MP. Give me a Satsuma, give me a Satsuma." Over on the other side of the bar, an irate Liam is throwing this morning's music papers around and ranting about Oasis being exploited or some such like. Noel watches his brother, adjusts his shades and sighs. "I'm going to tell him that Henry Rowland has been slagging him off," he decides. "He'd rip our kid's leg off, shove it up his arse, and then lick him to death like a fucking lollipop." And over in the corner, Gwigsy sits, wondering why his hands are shaking so much, enthusing about Star Wars and planning for the future. You know Leonard Nimoy is on Creation? Yes. Well, I want Spock to be our tour manager. Could you imagine that? You have just thrown that table out of the window. That is highly illogical, Gwigsy. Obviously confronted with all this evidence, any sane soul without direct responsibility for this Oasis tour would pack their bags, slink off to the nearest mainline station, and get the first train back home to normality pronto. Sadly, the enemy crew simply sits in the midst of the chaos and twitches. Eventually, after losing the band transport for half an hour, Oasis apologise to the staff, pile into the van and head off to Derby, armed with half a local McDonald's. It's one of those afternoons after the few nights before journeys, where a sense of communal numbness prevails. Bonehead wants to vomit and the tape deck blasts out the Beatles, The Who and the Sex Pistols. Then we hit the traffic jam from hell outside Birmingham. When a sleek business type refuses to let the van sneak in the front of his saloon in the outside lane, the previously dozy band suddenly erupt, banging on the windows and hurling abuse at the unfortunate driver. Then, as we crawl through the roadworks, Bonehead spots a clutch of archetypal British workmen doing bugger all and yells, "Start digging." 5 minutes later, and now fully warming to the task, Bonehead decides to stage dive. Clambering onto his seat, he throws himself headlong into the back of the van. Nothing wrong with that, you might say, except Bonehead is driving. It could be said that if in hedonistic terms, Primal Scream are the Muppets, Oasis are more like the Muppet Babies. A danger only unto themselves. They're the sort of trainee rock and roll gits who may be sussed enough to go backwards for their musical inspiration, mercifully left behind the nastier elements of the trade rock lifestyle. So their bag is speed rather than smack, and their attitude is based upon bewilderment rather than insufferable belligerence. Noel's the one with the permanent half smile, who appears to get most of his kicks from watching the rest of the band's antics. Tony barely utters a single word in the entire 3 days. Gwigsy, general consensus has it, is coming out of his shell and becoming more and more unhinged, the longer the tour progresses. Bernard is simply bonkers, and Liam is the loose cannon, the one who spends 10 minutes abusing receptionists and the next half hour trying to chat them up. Lippier than the rest, he's always up for something, and when he recounts the Portsmouth saga to an enraptured mini audience in the Derby dressing room, you can see how much he gets off attention. Beer is the best drug ever, he bellows at one point. I do fucking care, me. I feel sorry for our kid, Noel has mused back in Newport. I get all this shit going on inside my head, and I can't write it all down and get off on that. But he can't, so his release is to get off his head. Noel admits that he worries about some of the, less PC things Liam is inclined to blurt out. There's no need to say them really, he just sets himself up. He talks about his brother's responsibility towards the eye-pointing. Pointing out that he's representing 5 people, including himself, and sighs heavily again. Our kid thinks that I was sitting in the room, reading. I don't want that at all. Man, he fucking winds me up. He's that one person I argue with. He goes on about this and that and say, shut up, you fucking dickhead. I used to change your fucking nappies. Basically, if it's for a smack in the mouth, I get one. And the same applies to me. If I'm asking for a smack in the mouth, I'll get one. What if Wank Weekly phoned up and asked Liam to romp around in a soapy bath full of naked models for the centre spread? He wouldn't do it, frowns Noel, after a long considered pause. That'd cause another fight, but do you know what really worries me? I worry that someone's going to throw a bottle at our kid one night, and he's going to casually move out of the way and let it smack me right in my mouth. So Oasis do another cracking gig, and some more substances are more socialising. And then, no doubt, to the relief of 5 horrendously overworked constitutions, not to mention all of Derby's hotels, they go home. After a bizarre night drive in England, there's a quick sprint around Manchester, dropping various members off at their houses. It all ends at 3 AM in the Britannia Hotel, where the buzzcocks are retiring to bed. These animal men cower in shady corners, and the bar bulges with soft southerners in crap Adidas gear loudly celebrating United's championship success. In the midst of all this, Noel Gallagher partakes of one last G&T and contemplates the next step in the Oasis plan for global domination, Glastonbury. People go on about the pressure and all that because they sit and think about it all day, he decides. But we'll just bowl up there, arguing in the coach on the way. Someone will probably have a tooth missing by the time we get on stage. We'll play the gig and then we'll get off and start arguing again. This is another dream. I always wanted to go to Glastonbury, but I could never afford a ticket, and now, all of a sudden, someone's paying me to play for a load of people, and give me loads of beer and drugs. It's going to be brilliant, because once you're in that field, anything goes. When you're at home in your local pub and announce, I'm going to get my face painted like a panda, everyone goes, what the fuck does he mean? Let's bottle the cunt. But at Glastonbury, you can take all your clothes off and run around naked. That's what it's there for. Same with this band. Let your hair down, man. Have a good time. That's what it's there for. Then you wake up the morning after and do it again and again and again and again. Then on June 6th, it's a lost gig at the Arts Centre in Norwich. Then it's the Maison Rouge sessions, which has a demo of Some Might Say. Who is heard, and Noel is also heard saying, fucking hell. The song isn't quite finished, but you can tell it's getting there. Nothing majorly out of place apart from Noel being on vocals. I don't know why, but the ending noise kind of reminds me of I Wanna Be Adored by the Stone Roses, but that's probably just me. Then it's a Listen Up instrumental, which is literally just the instrumental, so nothing crazy to comment on there. This is also the day the Naked City performance of Supersonic and Shakemaker is recorded. Then on the same day as the previous two, they did an interview on The Beat, which was broadcast on June 28th, but I'll talk about it now, because why not? So it starts off with Gary Crowley, who was the interviewer, asking about how they got signed to Creation. Liam is definitely more present in this interview than others we've heard. Noel has to say, can I speak now, because Liam's always chirping in. They also say that because they are from Manchester, and were inspired by the Stone Roses, they are who they are. Then on the same day, once again, they did a BBC evening session with Joe Wiley as the DJ. She asked, what are you playing for us tonight? And I think Liam says, Living Forever in a funny accent. Anyways, on to Live Forever, which, you know, it's like the other previous ones, only acoustic. Noel does the "You and I Gonna Live Forever" parts, a pretty top version I say. Now onto the segment named Interview with Joe Wiley, saying that version was better than the one at the Albert Hall, which Noel responds, now don't start. She then asks if they enjoy being in Oasis, to which they respond absolutely. Then she adds onto that saying, do you like doing all the interviews and that? Liam then replies saying, no, not really, because you end up like a record player saying all the same things. Joe interrupts Liam, asking, do you find it really hard? Liam replies, yes. Is that why when you do interviews and you do it together? Because I love reading the interviews that you do, because they're really funny, because you're always arguing through them. But do you kind of ham it up a bit? Noel replies, we pork it up, we never ham it up, which gets the whole room chuckling. Liam then says, we're vegetarian. Noel then says, it's all an act for the benefit of the enemy. We actually love each other. She then says, do you love your mum? Is your mum still a big fan? Liam replies, yeah, mad for it, me mum. Rock and rolling, me mum. Joe asks if she told you off recently. Liam replies, yes, for me moving back. Noel gives more context, saying he moved out of my mum's house and he's sort of not left yet. She keeps telling him off for coming back with his dirty washing. Joe then asks, do you like the reputation you've got? Liam says, yeah, I think it's great. Joe then asks, what are you going to do for them now? Liam says, we're going to do one of my songs, and it's Shaky Maker starts to be played. Again, the playing is top, and the singing is top. I rate it. Now it's another interview segment with her talking about how they're due to play Glastonbury and if they're looking forward to it. Noel says, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've got to see Johnny Cash and I've got to get his autograph for my mum. And my mum said if I don't get a picture of taken with me and Johnny Cash, then I've not to come home. Liam then says that he's really terrified by it all because there's loads of people there. Noel says that he lost his bottle at the Albert Hall and that he won't be there and he'll let me sing instead. Now on to the final song, which is the first time this was ever played, with Noel jokingly saying he's going to make it up on the spot. He also says, good evening, I'd like to apologise on behalf of Liam, who can't sing with us tonight because he's flapping. Joe tells him to just get on with it. He starts to play Sad Song, which is phenomenal as it's the first time it was ever played. This appeared on the bootlegs Paris 94 and Demos, Undrugged, and the Music Artist Collection 2021 rebroadcast. Now onto a gig at the Marquee Club in London on June 8th. Now I could give 100 million reasons to like this gig. Okay, maybe that was a bit too far. It's an alright gig, just had a hard time listening to it due to its poorer quality than the others. Now I'm going to have someone on for the Marquee Club and they are going to be anonymous.
This is a weaker night of the Definitely Maybe tour on the whole. The crowd are quite hectic and it gets on Liam's nerves at several points, especially if he's getting things thrown at him. He's constantly arguing at the troublemakers throughout the first half of the show. Along with this, Liam's voice is a little rough tonight. He sounds good as long as he doesn't push into his upper range, but when he does, he often sounds strained. Due to this, he plays it safe on some songs, opting not to do falsetto on some lines. Perhaps for the better though is when he tries one falsetto in I Am the Walrus in that register, it sounds very unstable.
I couldn't agree more with what they said about this gig, as I think this stuff runs through the set list, which consists of Shake and Make a Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, a tease of Cigarettes and Alcohol with Noel playing the opening riff, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Supersonic, I'm the Walrus. Excerpts of footage have appeared on the Definitely Maybe DVD and the There and Then DVD. On the same day, the rebroadcast of the BBC session from the 22nd of December 1993 was aired. Then it's a lost gig on June 9th at the University of Manchester. Then it's an interview with Noel on the Piccadilly Key 103 radio in Manchester on June 11th. And a rundown of what this interview was. It's an interesting early interview with Noel by Pete Mitchell. Pete references a DAT tape of a demo that Noel gave him 2 years prior in a case labelled The Rain, before he had joined the band. Noel talks about the recent rowdy gig at the Marquee Club and their upcoming gig in Preston that same evening. Speaking of their gig at Preston, they played at Evernham Park on the same day as the interview. They begin to play Shaker Maker, which seems to be going fine, but it abruptly ends just 2 minutes into the song due to one member hurling a beer near stage. Noel says to the crowd, we want to play for you, so don't start. Liam also says, any more of that and we'll just fuck off. We're not fucking dickheads and we're not Blur. Noel says, alright, well there's your first song, fucking finished anyways. The crowd then start chanting Oasis so that they would play the next song. No then says, "So you're gonna behave then, or what?" They then start to play Fade Away, and I have to say this is probably the best version we've heard so far. Liam's just on it in terms of his vocals, and the playing is as good as always. When he sings the Fade Away, he does it perfectly. Then he sticks his dinner, which is again just phenomenal. The lasagna falsetto is done perfectly and so nonchalantly. As always, the playing is at the standard, although you can tell Noel isn't very energetic as he is during the Marquee Club. Then it's Live Forever with all the same stuff previous also being present. Yes, sure, you could argue it's not the best one we've heard, and Liam isn't as good as Glen Eagles, for example, but it's fine, as it is in my opinion. The riff isn't done perfectly, but so what? It's still fine, and no massive issues resonate with me. Let's bring it on down with the falsettos on You're the Outcast, You're the Underclass is perfect. This version on Bring It On Down has to be one of my favourites we've heard so far. Now on to Up in the Sky, which is perfect once again. Liam pulls off the holding of notes like it's nothing. The gig is genuinely one of my favourites so far. Let's see around alcohol with Liam not being as good as previous, yeah sure, but it's quite late into the gig and I don't think I could pull this off. Then Supersonic, which to be honest isn't one of my favourites. Probably the worst song in this gig, but it doesn't detract on how you'll still see me bopping my head to this. I mean, it's Supersonic as 94, so it's prime what is there to massively dislike. Then it's I'm the Walrus, which immediately roars with that intro riff. There's nothing to hate. Sure, Liam's voice cracks at the end of the Standing in the English Rain, but apart from that, he's trying to do every falsetto. This is what the gig had been leading up to, or at least that's what Liam had thought. The taper, who goes by Tommy Bagdon, said this about the night. I was at the stage right, about 10 feet from the stack. This was my first Oasis show and recording. I wasn't too fussed on them to begin with, but this show really got me. A beer flew over my head during the first tune and halted the first song. By Walrus, I knew they were going to be more than a flash in the pan-indie band. Now onto a gig at the Glasgow Cat House on the 12th of June, and we start with Shaker Maker. Now for this version, Liam can be a bit unstable at that point with his voice, but I like that. I think it's better than what they did in Preston, to be honest. Let's Fade Away, and I think compared to Preston, yeah sure he can't top that, but still you can't go wrong with a bit of 94 Fade Away. I say compared to some others we've heard, it's still really fucking good. Then he sticks his dinner and he really goes for the lasagna. You can tell even if he's given it all the day before and he's a bit burnt out, he doesn't care because he still goes for it. Let's Live Forever with some of the best present drumming from Tony so far. In terms of the vocals, there is no You and I Gonna Live Forever, even Noel is attempting them this night. It's definitely not the best we've heard, but certainly not bad by any means. And let's Bring It On Down, which again isn't bad by any means, and I dig Tony's drumming during this gig. Liam does miss a bit during the second You're the Outcast. He pauses and then sings You're the Underclass, which fixes it. Apart from that, there's nothing horrible about this gig. Then it's Up in the Sky, and when he sings My World and Calling, it's a bit dodgy due to him not sounding as normal, but I get that whilst singing this song, so I have to give him some leniency due to me knowing it's hard to keep like that. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol, which can be a bit rocky at times, but it is genuinely one of the hardest songs to sing for definitely maybe in my opinion. Then it's Supersonic, which has Liam's voice a bit raspy, but that comes with the sort of ending period of the Shaker Maker tour, with Liam's voice always sounding a bit dodgy during Supersonic, but he's still mostly fine. Liam then says this is the last one and then you can go to the after party, as there was an after party to anyone who bought the ticket. Liam's voice usually improves after Supersonic, and I don't know why. Liam's voice is an enigma. It's unpredictable, but it's great. Now onto the note segment, as Noel teases the Cigarettes and Alcohol riff multiple times throughout the gig. On a K-Vox blasting through the airwaves cassette giveaway, it was billed as having Cat House 1994 on it, but instead it was Glen Eagles. It's the Cat House night the day after, on the 13th of June, and it starts with Shaker Maker. It's an alright version of Shaker Maker, nothing too crazy, and Liam is definitely more on it in this gig, and in the previous gig. The bass is very loud, but I don't know if that's because of the position of the taper or the equipment used. Liam then says to the crowd, thank you. Then it's Fade Away with probably the most present drumming I've ever heard for this song. Again, the bass is proper loud, kind of washing out Liam's voice, but I digress. Liam's vocals are probably equal to night one for this song. Liam isn't going crazy, he's just doing the bare minimum, which is fine as he's gearing up his voice for later in this gig. Next things he's with again the same stuff with the bass and some of the best drumming Tony ever did in his tenure. I think this version tops the first night's version, but only by a little bit. Liam just seems to be trying stuff and he's holding the lasagna a whole lot better. Then Noel teases cigarettes and alcohol, but when he stops the entire crowd are disappointed. They start playing Live Forever with that bass fucking massively loud, which makes it mega, and Liam's vocals are definitely getting into gear. Especially at the Maybe I Will Never Be part. Also, he's actually doing the You and I Are Gonna Live Forever parts. Now once you bring it on down with the version I've got, it's incomplete, only clocking in at 2 minutes long. Starting at the first, you think they're talking about you, but you don't know who. The playing is perfect from Noel. I know I haven't talked about Noel enough, but that's because he rarely fucks things up in these early days. Nothing else to really say, other than this Bring It On Down part is low quality, due to, I believe, it being sourced from another recording of this gig. Or I could be wrong, and that is just when they had to record due to their cassette recorder running out of battery or something like that. It takes a while to kick in and be its normal quality. Let's Up in the Sky, which, has the same things that have been said previously, good, but the bass not as present as previous, which is good. Also, he sings the Called In and My World the same as Night 1, which is the only downside to the otherwise top performance of Up in the Sky. Some of the crowd are heard chanting during the silence between it and Cigarettes and Alcohol. Anyways, on to Cigarettes and Alcohol, and you can just tell Liam is focused, and this is one of the best Cigarettes and Alcohols we've heard from him so far. Probably not the best playing from Noel, but it is what it is. Then after this song, there was Surprise Surprise, more chanting. Then it is Supersonic, which is fine. As I said before, usually at this song, Liam isn't doing his all as he's waiting for I Am the Walrus. But yeah, probably one of the better Supersonics we've heard already. He's not doing anything crazy. This version of the song is just quite a relaxing and calm one for Liam's voice and playing. And it's I Am the Walrus, but during the first verse, instead of singing See How They Run Like Pigs from a Gun, See How They Fly, instead he sings See How They Smell Like Pigs in a Sty, See How They Snide, which appears much later in the song. Apart from that, the vocals go great, the playing goes great. This is like their magnum opus of the Shake and Maker tour. Everything has been building up to it. What a gig. Definitely better than the first night, not just in vocal and instrumental performance, but also in audio quality, even if Bring It On Down is a bit dodgy in places. This appeared on the bootleg Shake Along With Me without Bring It On Down, and as was mentioned before, the K-Vox blasting through the Airways cassette, which was billed as being from Cat House, when it was actually from Glen Eagles. Then on the same day, Oasis' second single is released in the form of Shake and Maker. So obviously we start with Shake and Maker, which has such lyrics as I'd like to be somebody else and not know where I've been, which has some meaning to it, unlike most of this song, where Noel just took most of the lyrics from things he knew about and around him. He sings lines taken from quite a famous Coca-Cola advert, which later got them sued for £500,000. The line Shake and Maker comes from a toy Noel owned as a child, and Mr. Sifter was a record shop where they went quite regularly. Liam was pushing Noel to write the second verse whilst in a taxi to the studio, where Noel was stuck at some traffic lights and saw Mr. Sifter's. Mr. Soft was taken from a Treble Soft Mints commercial, which featured Cockney Rebels' song Mr. Soft. Mr. Clean is a song by The Jam, one of the Gallagher's favourite bands, and Mr. Bennett is a British children's cartoon. Then on to Do You Wanna Be a Spaceman, which has an echoey sound to Noel's voice. It's the second song to have Noel on vocals, the first being the aforementioned Take Me Away. This is the version which also appeared on the live demonstration demo tape. It has lines such as Do You Wanna Be a Spaceman and Live in the Sky, and How the Dreams Fade Away as you grow older, kind of like a later B-side, which we've heard plenty of times live, being Fade Away. This is shown through the line, you got how many bills to pay and how many kids. And it's funny how your dreams change as you're growing old. You don't want to be no spaceman, you just want the gold. Then it's a live 8-track, which I kind of talked about in the last part as I delve into the lyrics. So yeah, let's digress. And then it's Bring It On Down from the Hit the North, which I've already talked about. Now onto the track list from each territory and each version. So on CD Creation Records 182, it's the generic one that I've just talked about. Then on the 7-inch version from Creation, which only has Shake and Maker and Do You Wanna Be a Spaceman. On the 12-inch, however, it has a live on it as well. Then on the cassette, it's the same as the 7-inch version. And now onto the maxi single, which is mega and has Shaker Maker, Do You Wanna Be a Spaceman, a live 8-track demo, Bring It On Down, I Will Believe, and Cloudburst. It charted 45 on the Euro chart Hot 100, in Scotland it reached 6, and on the UK singles chart it reached 11. It sold 200,000 units and reached silver. Then it's an appearance by Nil Pat Aliers in France on June 15th, which was the first time Oasis ever played out of the UK. And so on there, they play Supersonic with Liam saying Bonjour Paris. To me it feels very similar to The Word, with it being very studio feeling and not like any gig version. Nothing too groundbreaking, but definitely good. At the end, Liam says Merci. Now onto two quick notes, and the source we have is from a 2000s broadcast, and I couldn't personally find the original broadcast, but it's probably out there somewhere. Then onto their first interview out of the UK from the M6 archive on June 16th. They talk about most stuff we've heard before, with that consisting of talking about who they are and the ferry incident. Here's the stuff that is of interest. Noel predicts they will be famous in 3 years. Liam has an Edeon label of help, which they got for £10, and at the end they have a mute chase in central Paris. Then it's the first gig out of the UK at L'Erotica in Paris on the same day, with only a few clips surfacing, nothing massively groundbreaking actually being present during the gig. The clips are from every song we'd usually hear other than Shaker Maker and Up in the Sky. Then it's a lost gig at the Brighton Centre on June 18th. Then it's the broadcast of them live at Naked City on June 22nd. It starts with a fine version of Supersonic, probably at the bottom of TV performances of the song, but still fine and by no means awful. Then it's Shaker Maker, which I feel the same way about. It's not blowing me away, and Liam isn't doing anything where I think, hold up, what's he done there? His voice has got a bit of rasp, which I enjoy. Yeah, average performance on both songs. Then it's an interview with Caitlin Moran, with her asking the good points and bad points of being famous. Shaker Maker was released officially on the Definitely Maybe DVD. Then our last performance where Noel was on stage with the Crazy Horse in London on June 23rd. Then it's Oasis' first big gig so far, Glastonbury on June the 26th. They start with Shaker Maker like usual, which I prefer to most ones we've heard, with the exception of probably Glenn Eagles and Preston. The way he holds the R's is amazing, and just like how it is on the studio version. You know you're always going to get a good performance when it's Shaker Maker in 94. It explains why they took a week's break in order to get Liam's voice into shape. Liam then says thank you very much. This one's called Fade Away. Tony is going ham on the drums, which is always a treat. This version isn't quite Preston, but it's still a cracking one, and I'd put it at 2 out of the Fade Away we've heard. The way he sings the Fade Away doesn't sound like he's bored, unlike later versions of the song. Just chill in my eyes. Then Liam says thank you once. Then Diggsy's Dinner starts to blare, and that drumming, I can't get enough of that drumming. Liam's not entirely going for everything, but I feel like he knows his limits and he doesn't want to look stupid at a massive gig that's also on national television. The way he sings These Could Be the Best Days of Our Lives is arguably the best so far. Then Noel does the tease Cigarettes and Alcohol with the riff. Let It Live Forever and that drumming. I can't stop talking about this drumming, it's phenomenal. Also, Liam is top notch and people crown this version as the best Live Forever ever done live due to Liam doing the falsettos. Liam then says, are there any casualties out there yet? Who's here with a Man City top? Hoorah. Let's bring it on down, and do I even need to say it? I will anyways. It's of course that goddamn drumming. Also, I would say arguably Liam's vocals are the best they've been so far in terms of Bring It On Down. The riff that's played near the end is also amazing. Now you'd think they'd play Up in the Sky next, but no, they had to cut it due to time constraints. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol, which again is one of the best we've heard. The way he says aggravation and situation is what I dig. Noel then says this next song is about us. Of course it's Supersonic. Probably not the best we've heard, although I've definitely got bias as I love the studio version the best, but even live I don't think it's the best as I dig them BBC acoustic ones. That end riff is played perfectly, so yeah, can't grumble too much. It's a perfectly fine version, but as normal, he's gearing up his voice for I Am the Walrus. Speaking of I Am the Walrus, it blares William's voice being absolutely perfect. This is up there with the Metro one, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Liam fucks up when he sings Dripping from a Dead Dog's Eye, like normal, but then he sings the wrong verse, Salmonella Pilchard, which makes him stumble on his words, and he doesn't sing the rest of the verse, and only comes back in for the chorus, and after everything, him resumed to normal. God, I love this gig. One of the best ones again, but I'd put it in top 3 ones we've heard so far. This appeared on the bootleg Definitive, A Year in the Life, The Remains of the Day, and also was rebroadcast multiple times with the whole gig in 2020, Cigarettes and Alcohol in 2021 as part of Britpop in Glastonbury, and also Live Forever in 2021 as part of Joe Wiley's 90s Glastonbury. Live Forever was also featured on the Definitely Maybe DVD. Then it's an interview with Noel just after Glastonbury with a San Diego journalist. They talk about what's happening in America in terms of Oasis, the press and reputation they've got in the UK, and I believe the first time Noel name drops Definitely Maybe and says it's going to be released in August. Then it's them on top of the Pops on June 30th performing Shaker Maker. Obviously nothing special as it's just miming. Then whilst editing this video, I found some lyrics that Noel had made possibly during the recording sessions of Definitely Maybe, or potentially even in the early 90s. So the first one is Half the World Away, which only goes up to verse 3, although the chorus is noted as being repeated after verse 3. Let us listen up, but it's not that song you're thinking of. No, this is a totally different song called Listen Up, and Noel using phrases across different songs is actually something we've seen before. If you remember the song Hey You from Noel's songs, which had the repetition of the phrase Hey You, which later appeared in Up in the Sky. Then it's a song called Love, which is an early title for Married with Children. Then it's Trying to Be a Spaceman, which is complete and was probably used for the live demonstration tape. Then it's Rock and Roll Star, which is unfinished and only going up to You're All in My Hands Tonight. Then it's Take Me Away, and I noticed something strange. Instead of saying you could be me and I could be you, it's you could be you and I could be me. Also, it starts with just when it falls apart, you can play your part. Then it's Whatever, which is very similar to the final version, and if you remember, they did this all the way back in the Boardwalk basement. Then Shake My Cup, which is mostly normal, but at parts the lyrics are different, like I'd like to walk around the town with my friend Mr. Stuffed, Mr. Clean and Mr. Bent are shaking in my loft. Also after the bridge there's a note which says repeat first verse. Then it's a song called Chill, which is unheard, and another unheard song after that being called I Am Always Right, and then another one after that being called Only My Pride. Then it's a list of what I'm guessing is all the songs Noel had wrote up until this point. This list goes as All Around the World, I Know a Girl, which could be Head Shrinker, Mirror and the Razor Blade, which can only be Morning Glory, Little Things, which could be It's Good to Be Free, She's Electric, Cream, Rodney, Listen Up, Hello, Going Nowhere, My Friend Says, which could be Supersonic, Revolver, I've Decided, Faces, Rex/Beatles, Better Let You Know, Pilots, Sunday Morn, Paint, A Mental Picture, Never Allowed, The Cat in the Hat, Out of the World, Definitely Maybe, which was a song, or maybe he's just listing titles. Then it's Only My Pride, Lost Again, Blue, Is That a Fact, I'm Always Right, Shelter from the Fall, Talk About Me, Half a World Away, Joy Division 1, Swamp, Helicopter, Song in a Suitcase, and finally Sunflowery 1. What a strange thing to find, and I have no clue what over half of these songs are. And if you remember in the first part, Noel said he wrote a load of songs after Badge, so these could be some of them. Then it's a photo of the original Definitely Maybe track list, and it's interesting to say the least. The first A of the original has an asterisk next to them, which I believe means mainstays for the album. It's safe to say not all of these ended up on the album, although it was clearly intended right up until the last minute. So let's bring it on down first, then Columbia, then Cloudburst, then Rock and Roll Star, then it's Fade Away, then it's Up in the Sky, then it's Dixie's Dinner, then it's Live Forever, and then finally On the Walrus. Nothing really strange apart from Walrus, but as we know, and have now listened to, they did make a studio version of On the Walrus at Sawmill Studios. Then it's Spaceman, which is Do You Want to Be a Spaceman, Married with Children, Take Me Away, Whatever, I Believe, which is I Will Believe, Coming On Strong, which is Setting Sun. Then it's Shelter from the Fall, which is an unreleased and unheard song, Life by the Sea, which is It's Good to Be Free, Clocks to Watch, which is another unreleased and unheard song, Lock All the Doors, which has been played live with the High Flying Bird, surprisingly enough, Columbia, Strange Thing, and then Alive. Then there's a second track list, which goes as Columbia, Up in the Sky, Fade Away, Live Forever, Shake and Make Up, Bring It On Down, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Married with Children, Rock and Roll Star, Whatever, Dixie's Dinner, I Believe, Spaceman, and Cloudburst. Then there's a third track list which goes as Rock and Roll Star, Up in the Sky, Spaceman, Cloudburst and Live Forever. Then even though it's in the same block as the previous track list, it resets back to 1, going as Bring It On Down, Dixie's Dinner, Married with Children, Columbia and Whatever. Then underneath that it shows the planned B-sides as being Fade Away, Strange Thing, Walrus and Alive. Then it's a short set on ITV's Something for the Weekend on the 1st of July. It starts with Rock and Roll Star, which is the first time it's performed live, and it's great. There is a definite instrumental or backing track used for all the tracks, but Liam's vocals are fine. Same with Supersonic and Shaker Maker, which were also played during this appearance. Then it's a jump to July 21st due to their 1-month break. The gig in question is at the New Music Seminar in Wetlands, New York. It starts with Shaker Maker, and this Shaker Maker, I'd say, is most like the studio version so far. As always, the way he sings the R's is good. Let's Fade Away, and I can't lie, I'm starting to run out of things to say, and you've probably noticed it too. So let's say Liam's vocals are essentially like they are for Shaker Maker. Then it's Dixie's Dinner, which again Liam's vocals are fine, and their playing is fine also. Then Live Forever with Liam's voice not being able to do the You and I Gonna Live Forever parts properly, but apart from that, great work. Let's Bring It On Down with, of course, Tony's drumming being phenomenal. Everyone's on it for this song. This is probably one of the best, if not the best, Bring It On Down I've heard so far. You don't realise it until you've heard all the other Bring It On Downs over the course of a few months. Then it's Up in the Sky, which is a bit shaky in terms of playing, but they eventually get into the groove. It's nice to see it back as it wasn't in Glastonbury. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol, which is fine. The thing is, with listening to these gigs, they all sound the same. So yeah, perfectly fine, and I can vibe to it. Then Supersonic with the first Nobody Can Ever Hear Him Call being cut off. Perfectly fine once again. That's I'm the Walrus, which is once again perfectly fine. Probably best we've heard. I do love I'm the Walrus when it's perfect. Perfect closer for this tour. This appeared on the bootlegs Hello New York without Supersonic and I'm the Walrus. First Out of New York and From England. First USA show, 1994. The bootleg A Year in a Life claims to have Supersonic, but instead it's from the Tramway gig. Then on July 22nd, both the UK and US versions of Live Forever videos are recorded. It was directed by Carlos Grasso and features unusual imagery such as Liam Gallagher sitting on a chair as fixed to a wall, and a number of scenes are devoted to the band burying drummer Tony McCarroll alive. Some of the UK version of the promotional video was filmed at the Strawberry Fields Memorial, the area of New York City's Central Park dedicated to John Lennon. The American video, directed by Nick Egan, features the band playing in an office with pictures of Sid Vicious, Kurt Cobain, Jim Morrison, John Lennon, Brian Jones, Jimi Hendrix, Mark Bolan and Bobby Moore on the wall. Then it's an interview with Liam at Tea in the Park on July 30th, with Liam not really saying much and it only being a 1-minute clip existing. Then it's the actual Tea in the Park on the 31st of July with Liam saying Hello Scotland. Shaker Maker then starts, and you can forget what I said about the last one being the most like the studio version, because even Liam's voice sounds like it does on the studio version. Amazing version of Shaker Maker. Let's Fade Away, which again is like the studio version. The gig is studio version central. Then it's Dixie's Dinner, which is fine, just nothing crazy to comment on. Then Noel says this one's about you to the crowd. Live Forever begins to play, which is again fine, just nothing to comment upon once again that hasn't already been said for another gig. Then it's Bring It On Down, which you can't grumble at. It's a classic song and this version does it justice. Just what I'd expect. Then it's Up in the Sky and it's a shock, but Liam is actually attempting the falsettos. Sure, he misses a few, but it's good version in my eyes. Then Noel says, I want to dedicate this song to our manager, Marcus. Cigarettes and Alcohol begins to play. It's a very good version in my eyes, nothing crazy, just fine. That's Supersonic, which, like most of this gig, it's nothing groundbreaking, but still like most of this gig, I listen to it bob in my head. Then it's I'm the Walrus, with Liam's vocals being amazing. I think this is the best they've been so far, genuinely a mega version. Then it's an interview at the Hotel Cumulus in Finland on August 4th. Then it's the release of the Live Forever single on August 8th. It starts with the iconic Live Forever. It's probably one of Oasis's most popular songs, and for good reason, with lyrics such as "Did you ever feel the pain in the morning rain as it soaks you to the bone?" and "Maybe I will never be all the things that I want to be," and of course, "You and I are gonna live forever." I love this song to bits. Then it's a really good version of "Up in the Sky" done acoustically with Noggle on vocals. Then it's "Cloudburst" with lyrics such as "Wake up, there's a new day dawning. I think I'll take a little walk for a while," and "I can feel the rain." I love this song and its nonsense lyrics. Then it's Supersonic Live. Now on the actual track it says April 1994, but it is in fact from the Glen Eagles gig. The track list on the normal UK single is the one I went off. On the 12-inch it's the same, except Supersonic Live is omitted. On the UK cassette, with Live Forever and Up in the Sky acoustic. Then on the European single CD and the Australian single and cassette, which has everything from the UK single except it also includes a Live Forever radio edit as the first track. Then the US promo CD, which has a Live Forever edit and the Live Forever LP version. The US promo cassette has Live Forever and I'm the Walrus, which says it's from the Cat House, but it's actually from a Glen Eagles soundcheck. Then the Dutch single has a Live Forever radio edit and Up in the Sky acoustic. It charted at 70 on the Canada Top Singles chart, it reached 30 on the Eurochart Hot 100. In the Dutch Hot Top 40, it reached 8. On the Single Top 100, it reached 8. In New Zealand, it reached 45. In Scotland, it reached 4. On the UK Singles Billboard, it reached 10. On the US Radio Songs chart, it reached 39. On the US Alternative Airplay chart, it reached 2. Finally, on the US Mainstream Rock chart, it reached 10. It got 2 times platinum, selling 1.2 million units. There's a phone call interview with Liam. Now, I don't know the specific date of this, but seeing as he mentions the Horse-Fred gig as coming up, I've put it here. Nothing crazy to talk about, just rambling if you ask me. Then it's the infamous gig at the Riverside One in Newcastle on August 9th. So context, first they played Listen Up, which is a new addition to the set. Then it's Shaker Maker, Fade Away and Digsies, all the usuals. Then during Bring On Down, someone goes up on stage and punches Noel, which then meant that both Liam and Noel retaliated. There was a report on the gig done by Joe Wiley the day after. You can hear the crowd was really upset when they went off stage to not perform and that the atmosphere was scary. Noel said that all they wanted to do was just play some songs. Then an interview on MTV's 120 Minutes took place, I believe on August 10th. They are eating food with the interviewer jokingly saying this is Oasis eating their tea. They talk about this incident and Noel says he did it because he found out that he was sleeping with his girlfriend. They talk about the early days of Oasis and the fact that they joined. They also talk about the American gig at the New Music Seminar. On the same day there is a lost gig at the Irish Centre in Leeds. On August 11th there is a gig at Wolfram Hall which has cigarettes and alcohol, but this is believed to be a fake as one of the Club Quattro gigs has the cracks and stuff. Then August 13th it's a gig at Hultsfred Festival in Sweden. The first song is a new one as it's Columbia. Perfectly fine version but nothing too crazy. Liam does do great, that's for sure, and they all go ham on the instrumentation. Then Fade Away. First of all, he sings the second verse first until he stops at the line, maybe someday I'll make you understand. Then it's Dixie's Dinner, which again is nothing special. Noel after this teases the opening riff for Do You Wanna Be a Spaceman. Then it's Live Forever, which same goes for the other ones we've heard 1,000 times. Let's Bring It On Down is of course the same. Same for Up in the Sky. Then it's another new one, Slide Away. Not one of Liam's best vocal performances, but it's still Slide Away live, so I've got to love it for all its flaws. He definitely pulls off them Take Me There's well. Then it's Free, I've already talked about enough. Cigarettes and Alcohol, Supersonic, and I'm the Walrus. This appeared on the bootlegs Swedish Radio 94 and more. Slide Away, Talk Tonight, Forever Live, and fucking Last Night. Also, a short 21-second video clip of Columbia exists due to it being shown during a Swedish documentary. Then on the same day, the Verve were also playing that at that same festival. A drunk Liam and Noel came on stage just as the Verve were about to perform The Rolling People. Pretty cool if you ask me. This appeared on the bootleg Rare Live 93-97. And then it's an interview post-gig on the same day. It's quite a funny interview in terms of what Liam is saying. Liam talks about how they're genuine and not a Manchester band or a Sheffield band or anything. They're a universal band. Liam also talks about how he knew they were going to be big and become the best band of all time. A short clip of this was played by There We Were Now Here We Are. Then it's a gig at Rock City in Nottingham on the 15th of August. It starts with Colombia, which is fine like most gigs. Liam's voice is definitely similar to the studio version. Then it's Shaker Maker with Noel messing up on the solo and also Liam's voice cracking during many parts. I probably won't say much for these next songs, which are Fade Away, Daisy's Dinner, Live Forever, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Riff Tease, Bring It On Down and Up in the Sky, as I've talked about them to death. Then it's Slide Away, and with some of the best Take Me There's I've ever heard. A cracking version of Slide Away. Then for the last three, again, nothing much to say, which are Cigarettes and Alcohol, Supersonic and On the Waters. Then it's live at the Forum in Kentistown on the 16th of August, and here's something cool. The gig has actual footage, and it's of every song. It starts with Colombia, and Liam's voice does crack a bit, and Liam's voice isn't immediately heard in the intro due to mixing. The playing also isn't up to scratch. Then a change in the setlist, it's Fade Away, then Daisy's Dinner, then Shaker Maker, which is strange. Then it's Bring It On Down and Up in the Sky, then it's Slide Away, and Liam is just on it. I heard something about how cool it would have been to actually witness one of these gigs. Also, the playing is as good as always. That is Cigarettes and Alcohol, Supersonic, and On the Waters. This appeared on the bootleg All the Confusion. Then, on the 17th of August, they featured on Top of the Pops and did Rock and Roll Star. Of course, they're only miming, but this would have been the first time the public got to hear the studio version. This appeared on the Definitely Maybe DVD. Then it's an appearance on MTV's Most Wanted with Davina McCall introducing the band, and they start to play Whatever. Now, what a version. Bonehead is on piano, Noel is playing acoustics, and Liam's vocals are on form. Genuinely one of the best performances of Whatever out there. At the end, it's the first time they ever sing All the Young Blues at the end. Then another amazing rendition of Live Forever with Noel doing backing vocals. Genuinely one of the best TV performances they've done so far. This appeared on the bootlegs Undrugged, Unplugged Volume 2, Rags to Riches and the Acoustic Sessions Volume 2. Then on the same day they performed Live Forever on Top of the Pops, which of course they're just miming, so nothing much to comment on. Then also on the same day it's a gig at the Astoria in London. It starts with Colombia, and let me tell you, Liam really goes for the yeahs. It's a real highlight of the performance. Then it's Fade Away, then Liam accidentally declares Shaker Maker as being next but remembers it's Daisy's Dinner. Then it's Shaker Maker in which Liam sings I'd like to buy you all the coat to keep you company, just like what Noel sang at the Royal Albert Hall. Live Forever, which unfortunately doesn't have Liam singing the You and I Are Gonna Live Forever parts. Bring It On Down and Up in the Sky. Then it's Slide Away, and I don't know about you, but when I think of Liam's voice from this time, this is what I expect. One of the best Slide Away performances. There's Cigarettes and Alcohol, Supersonic and I'm the Walrus. This appeared on the bootlegs Two Sides of Every Story and Supersonic Pop Reaction. Two versions of the gig's footage exists, with the most popular being shot on a handheld camera and looking clean, and one filmed on a tripod and looking not as clean as the other one. Then Oasis Instrumental Jam, as it's known, was recorded at a soundtrack at the Borderline Club in London. Speaking of the Borderline Club, the Cigarettes and Alcohol music video was filmed on August the 21st at the Borderline Club. Then we get onto the actual Borderline gig. It starts with Slide Away, and listening to it you can tell Liam is at least a bit burnt out and doing the song as good as he could previously. Then it's Shaker Maker and Fade Away, where Liam asks for the vocals to be turned up because they're not very loud. Then it's Live Forever, which has the famed to Take Two Sugars in the Tea. Then it's Supersonic, in which Liam voice cracks on the word corner. Then it's Colombia, with once again Liam putting his all into the come-ons. Then it's a new one, Listen Up, with some fuck-ups from Liam due to him missing lyrics. And also, as the song goes on, Liam's voice does sound kind of bad, but Noel, the second time the riff is played, Noel fucks up horrendously. Then it's Trying to Be a Spaceman with Liam attempting to sing, but saying, oh, I forgot the words. Noel then restarts the song and starts singing, and it goes quite well. I do like those first two singles, Noel's songs, absolute gems in my eyes. Also, it's Electric, which is something. Then it's Whatever, which is a killer performance, with not only all the young blues at the end, but also a bit of changes by David Bowie, with Liam singing Turn and Face the Strain. Also, it's another electric one. Then it's On the Walrus. This appeared on the bootlegs Was There Then, and The Remains of the Day, which only had Listen Up, Trying to Be a Spaceman and Whatever. Then on August the 24th, it's Noel and Bonehead on 2FM. Then it's Slide Away, and let me tell you, it's a good version. It's an acoustic 12-string, and Noel is on vocals, and I feel this more relaxed version of Slide Away fits Noel's vocal range. I don't think he sounds too good trying to sing the full-on rock and roll one, but this one, yeah, sure, you can have a go. Then it's an excerpt from an interview with Noel in Holland. He talks about the day off in Amsterdam the day before and apologises to anyone that saw him. Then it's a gig at Lowlands on the 28th of August with Shaker Maker and Liam jokingly sings Out of Tangerines. Then it's Fade Away, Digsy's Dinner and Live Forever. This appeared on the bootleg Here We Go Again. There was also an interview with Liam and Gwigsy where they discussed the death of Kurt Cobain.
Definitely Maybe, the number one album from Oasis. Featuring the hit singles Supersonic and Live Forever. The UK's number one album from the UK's number one band.
Then on the 29th of August, the Definitely Maybe album was released. The first track was Rock and Roll Star, and with lines such as I live my life in the city and there's no easy way out, you can tell No wrote this about his childhood and his aspirations for being a rock and roll star, hence the line, in my mind, my dreams are real. Then it's Shake and Make Up, which I've already talked about to death. Then it's Live Forever, which is another one. Then it's Up in the Sky, with lines such as, hey you up in the sky, potentially being a calling to God. Then it's Columbia, with lines such as, I can't tell you the way I feel because the way I feel is oh so new to me, showing they were happy about being at least big in some way. Then it's Supersonic, which is another one I've spoken about to death. Then it's Bring It On Down, with Adam McGee's favourite lines of you're the outcast, you're the underclass, and my personal favourite, you're the uninvited guest, you stay till the end. There's Cigarettes and Alcohol with you might as well do the white line, showing they were taking drugs to numb the pain. This is further emphasised through the line Cigarettes and Alcohol. Then it's Digsy's Dinner, which is basically nonsense that Noel made when he was taking the piss out of his mate Digsy. Then it's Slide Away, which is about wanting to leave from the normalities of life and now that you're mine, emphasising you need someone. Also at the end, where you hear the Take Me Theirs, shows you need to go somewhere, but not where you've been. Then it's Married with Children, which talks about the struggles about being married and having children and how you argue, but eventually you'll go back to whoever you are arguing to. Now, I feel it fitting to mention an extra exclusive to vinyl in the UK. That song was Sad Song. It is known that it was written just after the ferry incident, hence why it goes, we're throwing it all away. The track list for Japan was Cloudburst being the 4th track and Sad Song being the 6th. On the Mexican release, Whatever was track 12. It charted the famed number 1 in the UK and became the fastest selling debut album at that time, only being beaten by Adele. The other chart positions were 23 on the Australian albums chart, 44 on the Belgium albums chart, 55 on the Dutch albums chart, 10 on the Europe albums chart, 18 on the Finnish albums chart, 20 on the French albums chart, 33 on the German albums chart, 15 on the Icelandic albums chart, 3 on the Irish albums chart, 34 on the Japanese albums chart, 5 on the New Zealand albums chart, 34 on the Norwegian albums chart, 4 on the Swedish albums chart, 25 on the Swiss albums chart, and 58 on the US Billboard 200. It reached 2 times platinum, selling 2 million units. Then it's a gig at the Virgin Megastore on the 30th of August to promote the album. The first song is Shaker Maker with Liam singing, I'd like to buy you all the coke to keep you company. Then it's Supersonic with Liam taking a more relaxed approach to the song, like the other acoustic versions we've heard before. Then it's Live Forever. Then it's Whatever, which I'd say is quite similar to the studio version. It also has All the Young Blues at the end. Then it's Sad Song, which again is like the studio, although it feels a bit rawer and I don't know why. Then it's a beautiful rendition of Slide Away, where Liam is just on it and being amazing. I don't know about you, but I love this gig, and it's got to be one of my favourites of all time. This appeared on the bootlegs through the years, Live in 94 Volume 2, Rocking Chair, and 2 versions with 2 different recordings of Slide Away. A clip of Shaker Maker has been seen due to the With Oasis documentary. Apparently there was an interview with Liam and Noel at the Buckley Tivoli on August 31st, but I couldn't find much information other than it was on the bootleg Sally Can Wait. Speaking of that gig, we go on to it, and it's infamous not because of the songs, no, it's actually because of what Liam does just before Digsy's dinner. He says, if you're feeling a bit of a geezer, right, whoever threw the fucking bottle, come up here and I'll slap you in front of the crowd. Then Digsy's starts, and it's an average version of Digsy's with Noel doing well on the solo. Then Live Forever with the famed Take 2 Sugars in the Tea. Clips of both have been taken from the Supersonic documentary and with Oasis, and also the Definitely Maybe DVD included this Dixie's Dinner performance. Then it's a gig at Gino in Stockholm on September 2nd. First is Colombia, then Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Shake and Make It, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Supersonic, and I'm the Walrus. Then a couple of lost gigs with, I believe, the setlist previous, which was the Gino one, and all other lost gigs had this unless stated otherwise. The first on September 3rd at Tivoli in Dublin, then on the 4th of September at the Limelight in Belfast, then a gig at the legendary Hacienda in Manchester on September 5th, then on September 8th at the Logo in Hamburg. On the same day, the broadcast of Top of the Pops Rock and Roll Star happened. Then on September 9th, they played Amsterdam Arena in Holland. Then the Club Quattro gigs, with the first being a soundtrack of the September 14th gig. The first song is Stand By Me, and I'm guessing you're like, well, how's that possible, when it came out in 1907? That's because Noel has said that he already wrote the first 3 albums from the start, and the first album where he actually had to think of songs was Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. Anyways, Stand By Me, it's clear he hadn't written the whole song as he sings What's the Time With You instead of What's the Matter With You, and he doesn't sing the second verse at all. Then it's Don't Go Away, which goes fine until I Need More Time because I Don't Know Why, because I've got no lines, which is obviously not what he sings in the final version. Then it's Going Nowhere, which is a bit faster, definitely a lot lighter, with the final being slower and Noel definitely singing it a lot lower. He also sings I Could Get Me a Motor Car, which is not what he sings in the final version. Then it's Bonus Bank Holiday with a completely different bridge, which goes Shut Up Moaning because you're wasting my time, and also different lines include I Could Hire a Car, and she didn't have to talk about a lot of things that I forgot. Then it's Hey Now, which had So I Heard Someone Say Now, and There's No Point in Running Away Now, and There's No Time to Run Away Now. And it's Some Might Say, which we've actually heard this period, Some Might Say, before, as it was part of the Maison Rouge sessions. These appeared on the What's the Story Chasing the Sun reissue for the What's the Story songs, and the Be Here Now reissue, excluding Going Nowhere. Then it's the actual Club Quattro gig with the tracklist Colombia, Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Riff, Shake and Make Up with Liam singing, I'd Like to Buy You All the Coke to Keep You Company, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, the first live Married with Children with Liam saying, we've never done this one before, so if we mess it up. Sad song with no singing. Sing a sad song in a lonely place and try to put a word in for me. He pauses then sings, Since I Found a Space, and continues like normal. Do you want to be a spaceman? Supersonic, I'm the Walrus, which also includes the Woos from the original Beatles version. And it's coming from the audience, which I think is the first time that's ever happened. I know about this gig, as you can tell, Liam's voice isn't the best, as his voice is cracking quite badly in some parts. This appeared on the bootleg gig Forever, and footage exists from a report on the gig for TV. This called Quattro Night 2 on the 15th of September, with the setlist Colombia, Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Shake and Make It, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Married with Children, Sad Song, Do You Want to Be a Spaceman, Supersonic, I Am the Walrus, and this night is better than the first, as Liam, and the whole band for that matter, are on form. This featured on the bootlegs Anarchy in Japan, Lost Shibuya tapes, and When I Was Younger. A professional recorded video of the whole gig also exists. There's Quattro third night on September 16th, a new starter to the setlist, which of course Rock and Roll Star. Liam's voice is definitely struggling a bit, especially at the chorus. Also, nice backing vocals go fine, apart from at the Just Too Fast For Me, which makes him sound like he's constipated. The setlist is Colombia, Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Shake and Make It, Live Forever, and at the end of Live Forever, Liam apologises for the vocal performances, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Married with Children, Sad Song, Do You Want to Be a Spaceman, Supersonic, I'm the Walrus. Liam's voice does crack on occasions, especially at the Jabu part of I'm the Walrus. This appeared on the bootlegs Aniki and Japanese Superstars. On the same day, in the Tokyo hotel room, they recorded a Half the World Away demo, which featured on the Chasing the Sun reissue of Definitely Maybe. I mentioned this in the previous part, but didn't know the concrete date, so it's nice to have it cleared up here. Then it's Club Quattro in Osaka on September 18th. This had the setlist Rock and Roll Star, Colombia, Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Shake and Make It, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Married with Children, Sad Song, Do You Want to Be a Spaceman, Supersonic, I'm the Walrus. This was on the bootleg West of the East Osaka Days 1994 to 1995. Then it's another Club Quattro on September 19th. It has the setlist Rock and Roll Star, Colombia, Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Shake and Make It, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Married with Children, Sad Song, Do You Want to Be a Spaceman, Supersonic, and I'm the Walrus. After I Am the Walrus, there is a funny altercation where Liam asks for the drumsticks back, as they must have been taken. Then it's a rock and roll star encore. This appeared on the bootleg Stain in a Blue Sky. Then it's a gig at Moe's Cafe with the announcer declaring for a band in Manchester, England, making their US debut here in the Northwest, Oasis. It has the setlist Rock and Roll Star, Columbia, Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Shake and Make It Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Open the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Married with Children, Supersonic, and I Am the Walrus. Then it's a lost gig at the Satyricon in Portland on September 24th with probably the aforementioned setlist. Then it's an interview on September 25th with Noel and Bonehead at K-Rock. They take phone calls from listeners a week before the ill-fated Whiskey gig. Noel mentions that they played Whatever at the Creation and Drugged gig at the Albert Hall. Then it's a session at Live 105 on the 26th of September, with Blur also being present in the studio. Oasis are introduced and they mention a sound check of this radio session, which never surfaced. Then Liam and Noel do an acoustic supersonic, reminiscent of acoustic supersonics that we've heard previously. Then the host mentions their Bottom of the Hill gig as upcoming. Blur piles in as Liam says that they don't want to do anything else. Noel mentions the K-Rock interview he did the night before. You can tell there definitely is some rivalry, but it overall seems friendly. They do some calls with the audience and everyone is calling for Blur. This clearly annoys Liam and Noel, and you can hear Liam in the background hurling abuse at them. Someone calls in and Liam hijacks it by doing some funny accent and saying to him, "You're all on top." The man is heard asking to speak to Graham, but Liam goes, "No you can't, you can speak to me." Liam then asks what's happening, then to which the guy responds bluntly, "No mate." Liam takes this to him, saying he's not doing much. The guys say, "I just wanted to say hi and how are you doing?" Liam responds, "I'm a good man, and sucking a man's a knob all night, mate." Blur are heard to be laughing at Liam. Liam thanks him for ringing in. Liam then finally passes him over to Graham. He says, "Hi, this is Edward from last night." This confuses Graham as he says, "Edward from last night," in a questioning and confusing manner. Edward elaborates by saying, "I was in the red shoes," which only confuses Graham more. They then cut him off. Then a woman called Melissa rings him for Blur. Though says, "Have you got anything to say to Oasis? You know they're the biggest pop band in Britain at the moment." She goes, "Oh really?" to which Liam does a mocking impression of her, saying, "Oh really?" She then says, "Hey, don't make fun of me," to which the host says, "We're just having fun." Then finally someone wants to speak to Oasis, and everyone in the studio is heard cheering. She says, "You're doing at the 21 and over club, right?" Liam says, "Yes, in the Midlands." She then says, "I'm 18 so I can't go." The host then says, "If you camp outside the bottom of the hill, you'll be able to hear perfectly. You won't be able to see much, but inside it's mob, so you won't be able to see much anyway." Liam then asks for her name, her address and her phone number, as she was the first one to call for them. They then put her on hold to get that information off air. Then a guy calls and asks for Oasis. He says the pressure they are under must be immeasurable. Then a woman called Jean asks to speak to Oasis. She says, "Well, everyone's been calling in for Blur." Then Liam chimes in, saying, "It's not fair, is it?" To which she responds, "No, it's not fair." Then it's the last call, and guess what? They wanted to speak to Oasis. She called on behalf of her friend in Bristol and asked for them to say hello to her. Then it's the decider call to see who's better, and finally someone calls for Blur, again to which they cheer. Then they leave to do a soundtrack for the Bottom of the Hill gig. The session appeared on the bootleg Oasis vs Blur. Then on the same day, it's the aforementioned Bottom of the Hill gig.
This show, perhaps on the surface, doesn't seem as strong as Seattle, down to the weaker vocals from both Noel and Liam. One of them has an amusing crack in the first chorus of Columbia. You can't ignore the energy of the band at this gig, however. They are very clearly enjoying themselves, playing mean renditions of Cigarettes and Alcohol, Supersonic and I Am the Walrus here, and the hunger and drive for essentially starting all over again away from home is heard loud and clear with each note they play. The show is captured on a really good audience tape, perhaps the best of the entire 1994 North American tour. As well as this, due to the size of the venue, which is very small, you can hear many of the attendees celebrating and cheering as they enjoy the drink and watch the show the boys put on. All this makes this show perhaps more of a worthwhile listen than Seattle in that respect. Liam and Noel had also done a radio interview and session earlier that day. Strangely enough, another up-and-coming Britpop band called Blur, whom both Gallagher brothers had slated several times already, joined them, which makes for an interesting listen. Blur also apparently went to the Bottom of the Hill show too, and whether or not they were there, Liam dedicates Dixie's Dinner to them either way.
Then it's a sound check on September 27th at Malarkey's. The first track is an interview with Liam and Noel. Liam mentions that I'd like to buy you all the coke line that had to be removed on the final release, and that how they still do it live. He mentions how Blur is shit, basically, which is funny, as the day previous they seem to at least get along with Blur a little. They talk about Johnny Marr's guitar and how he lent Noel a few. There's an a cappella shaker maker with the R's kind of reminiscent of the Sweet Child of Mine, as they're much faster than in the actual song. There's Fade Away, which is fine, nothing crazy to comment on. Then the final track is just known as Soundcheck, finishing as they pack up. The shaker maker appeared on the bootleg Through the Years. Then it's the actual gig on the same day at Malarkey's, which is, funnily enough, lost. Then it's a session at K-Rock on September 29th, and the host says, "You were here before," to which Liam says, "I wasn't." She says that she's gonna get them beverages. She asked if gin and tonic is their beverage of choice, or just because it rhymes with supersonic, and they said, nah, they're more into Jack Daniels now. They then play Shaker Maker, which Liam says he can't be asked to do Live Forever. It's a very soft version of Shaker Maker, which is a very common theme of acoustic soft versions of Oasis songs. She then asks if they want to do another song, to which Liam replies, "Let's have a drink first." This makes her remember about them, and gets them. They then do some American accents with mixed results. They then mention the Whiskey A Go-Go gig. They then do a song which is Married with Children, which is very good. Definitely one of my favourites we've heard, as it's very similar to the final version. During the second Your Music's Shite, Liam sings Your Music's Spirit's Ready, poo 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 poo. Then it's the infamous Whiskey A Go-Go gig on the same day. Had a lot of the big American music scene in attendance, and even Sir Ringo Starr. Unfortunately, they had all took a batch of crystal meth that then made everyone, even the crew, do kinda shit. They introduced as voted the best band in Britain. They start doing Rock and Roll Star with Liam's vocals clearly not loud enough in the mix. Also, Noel begins to play Shaker Maker as his setlist was different to everyone else's, causing a hiccup in the sound until Noel rectifies this. Also, the way Noel sings Just Too Fast for Me is absolutely dreadful. During the second I'm a Rock and Roll Star, they decide to abort this version of Rock and Roll Star, and Liam says to the crowd, "We'll do this one again for you." Then Noel tells the crowd that a machine had just broke down. Then Rock and Roll Star begins to play for the second time. Noel's vocals are a bit better, but not by much. But to be honest, I don't hear anything wrong with Liam's voice. Sure, he's raspy, but that fits with the song. Then it's Columbia with Noel's vocals being dreadful again. It's hard to listen to when you've got Liam, who's mediocre at singing in this gig, clashing with the god-awful groans of Noel. Liam doesn't bother doing the yeah yeah yeahs this time around. Then it's Fade Away, and I kinda dig Noel's backing vocals being kinda rough here. This song I think it actually works on. Then it's Digsies with nothing crazy going on there. Then we have Shaker Maker, which I think at this stage the whole band are at least a tiny bit on it. They know what they're there to do, and they do it alright. Again, nothing crazy, just average. Saying this, during the second Shake Along With Me, Liam only sings Me, and the whole band seem to fuck up slightly before fixing it again. Next, Live Forever, and Liam at the start comedically sings I Don't Really Want to Know How You Pick Your Nose. Then Noel does the second You and I Are Gonna Live Forever, as Liam's voice probably couldn't handle it. Now just bring it on down, and Tony is going ham on the drums, probably because he had a rush from all the meth. Apart from this, again the band at this point are on form, and for the most part playing how they should. It's Up in the Sky, and yeah, of course, Liam isn't doing the falsettos, but that's just what I expected from a gig with a bad reputation. Personally, I think this gig gets too much bad rep. It's fine, it's just what happened after wasn't. Then it's Slide Away, which is actually a really good version. I have no grievances, even Noel's on it in terms of vocals. Noel says after that, this one's for all you cowboys and cigarettes and alcohol begins to play. During the first Cigarettes and Alcohol, Liam misses the alcohol part. Then it's an electric version of Married with Children, and Liam sings the second verse first, and the first verse second, if that makes sense. Then Supersonic starts, which again is fine. Nothing too much to comment, to be honest. Then it's I'm the Walrus, and given this gig has such a horrible reputation, I don't mind it. Don't deserve all the shit it gets in my opinion. This appeared on the bootlegs Live at the Whiskey without the aborted Rock and Roll Star, Crash Landing in LA, and Swedish Radio 94, and more, with only Rock and Roll Star, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Married with Children, and Supersonic. Also, its version of Married with Children appeared on the Definitely Maybe DVD. Bayswater also released a version which has each source being both CD and DVD. This gig subsequently made Noel leave the band, as when Liam hurled a tambourine towards him, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Noel had left the band and had gone missing. The remaining band and crew believed he was in San Francisco, as he had met a woman there. Noel being missing made a lot of gigs be cancelled. These were the gigs that were cancelled. They were supporting to do a gig at the Casbah in San Diego on the 30th of September. Then on October 1st they were supposed to do a gig at Boston's Bar and Grill in Tempe. Then on October 3rd they were going to do a gig at the Bar and Grill in Salt Lake City. Then on October 4th there was going to be a gig at the Mercury Cafe in Denver. Then on October 6th it was going to be a gig at Trees in Dallas. Then on October 8th they were going to play at the Liberty Lunch in Austin. Then on October 9th Noel did an interview on The Edge. Although apart from that I have no information on what this entailed. Then on October 10th they were supposed to do a gig at Cicero's in University City. On the same day the Cigarettes and Alcohol single was released. So obviously the first track is Cigarettes, which I've already talked about. It's on the Walrus live at Glen Eagles soundcheck, although it is known as Live at the Cat House on the actual single, which is incorrect. Then it's Listen Up with lyrics such as Listen Up, what's the time? And I'm going to speak my mind, take me up to the top of the world, I want to see my crime. I think this song is about life and death, with lyrics such as one fine day gonna leave you all behind it. Wouldn't be so bad if I had more time. Then it's one of my personal favourites, Fade Away. It means that over time the hopes and dreams we had as kids disappear and become forgotten. It's a quite depressing song if you think about it. It's about growing older. It charted 30 in the Eurochart Hot 100, 15 in Ireland, 5 in Scotland, and 7 on the UK singles chart. It reached platinum, selling 600,000 units. The UK tracklist is the one I used. The 7-inch only had Cigarettes and Alcohol and I'm the Walrus. The 12-inch didn't have Listen Up, and the cassette had the same tracklist as the 7-inch. Then on October 11th, they were supposed to do a gig at the Bottleneck in Lawrence, the final one of the cancelled gigs of the American leg of the Definitely Maybe tour. On October 12th, they were supposed to do a gig at the Bottom Line in Springfield. Then on October 14th, they played a gig at the Uptown Bar in Minneapolis. But before that, we have the soundcheck. The first track is Untitled Jam, which to me is reminiscent of Slide Away, although other people say it's reminiscent of the Beatles track Free as a Bird and Champagne Supernova. Then there is a brief silence at the end of this Untitled Jam. Then it's a short vocal of Noel singing Live Forever a cappella before they move on to Slide Away. And yeah, sure, Liam's vocals are a bit dodgy, but it is what it is. He's probably just saving his proper vocals for the actual gig. And it's the Cigarettes and Alcohol opening riff. After that, it's another Untitled Jam. It appeared on the bootleg Backstage Now. Then it's a Fade Away instrumental. Then it's the actual gig at the Uptown Bar. The setlist is Rock and Roll Star, Columbia, Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Shake and Maker, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Married with Children, Supersonic, and I'm the Walrus. It's a pretty average gig in my eyes. Then it's an interview on the Ozone for the BBC on October 15th. Zoe Ball introduces them by stating that they are being hyped as the best band in Britain. She tells Liam and Noel that she's disappointed that the whole place isn't trashed, but that instead it's tidy. She then tells them up front that all the hype is true, that they are the best band in Britain. Liam replies, yes, we're the best band around today. Noel says that most of the songs on Definitely Maybe are supposed to be Escape. They then talk about Cigarettes and Alcohol, with Noel saying it's not glorifying it, it's just a feeling. Then it's a gig at the Metro in Chicago on the same day. It starts with Rock and Roll Star as usual, with Liam being really good. He tries mostly everything, and even Noel is on form for backing vocals. A very good version in my eyes. The ending seems to be a sped up version, but that's just how they did it live. Tweaking things as usual. Then Liam announces Columbia. Liam's voice is definitely raspy, but this definitely fits the song in my eyes. Liam isn't going for the falsettos, but in general a very good version. Liam doesn't sound too good on the yeah yeah yeahs, but I guess it's just hit and miss. Then it's Fade Away with Liam sounding absolutely brilliant. The way he sings, while we're living the dreams we have as children fade away, it's just otherworldly. Then it's Dixie's Dinner with Liam once again being good. Then it's Shake and Maker, and I could go on for years about this gig. I love it with a passion. I love it. It's probably one of my favourite versions I've heard. Liam is on form, and I entered this gig thinking it was going to be generic. He also sings the infamous I'd like to teach the world to sing line, which they sung mostly each time they did Shake and Maker live. This Live Forever, and Liam is definitely going all out on this one. You can hear it in his voice that he is struggling, but that isn't a bad thing. Overall, it's a solid version. Then Noel says, "This one's cold up in the sky," to which Liam says, "No, it's not, it's cold, bring it on down." Now, I used to vibe up this version all the time. It's one of my favourites. Liam is on form, and as always, he goes for it. Liam is truly brilliant in this gig. Then Liam says, "This one's really up in the sky." Liam does definitely try. Sure, he fumbles a bit, but even Noel fumbles on the guitar at points. Not the best version, but definitely not the worst either. Then it's Slide Away, and as I've said, Liam is just brilliant. I just can't get enough of this Liam. This version of Slide Away as well is class. When Liam sings the chorus, he gives it all. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol, and when Liam sings the shuns, it's magnificent. Genuinely something really good. Of course, you can't forget the You Gotta Make It from this gig as well. Amazing. Then it's a fast-paced electric Married with Children. Don't even need to say that Liam's vocals are great. He sings the second verse first and the first verse second. Then Supersonic, and Liam knows what he's there for, and he's doing it well. Again, nothing crazy, but still good in my eyes. Then it's the classic I'm the Walrus, with Liam not doing the crying falsettos, but apart from that, it's very good, and probably my favourite version. This appeared on the bootlegs Supersonic, Live at the Metro, The Remainder of the Day, Sorting It Out, Admitting, Fade Away, Shake and Make Us, Slide Away, Married with Children, and I'm the Walrus, Wired and Inspired, only having Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Columbia, and Fade Away, with the CD incorrectly labelling the gig as May 6th, 1995, and it also featured on official releases, which were an Epic Records promo disc titled Oasis Live, I Don't Believe the Truth Best Buy exclusive bonus disc with only Rock and Roll Star, Columbia, Live Forever, Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Supersonic. It also featured on the Definitely Maybe DVD, with the only two being Up in the Sky and I'm the Walrus, and finally the Stop the Clocks bonus DVD, which includes Fade Away. It also had a JBTV VHS promo, which had the footage of the whole gig on it. The performances of Live Forever, Bring It On Down, and Slide Away have been uploaded to the Oasis YouTube channel. Then it's a lost gig at St Andrew's Hall in Detroit on October 16th, with most likely the same recurring setlist we've heard previous. Then it's a performance on the Jon Stewart Show on October 17th. Supersonic is the first song, and Noel really goes for the guitaring. In terms of Liam, he's average. He has had to go from the highs of the Metro gig to this, but it's not bad by any means. Then it's a clip of Rock and Roll Star as it plays during the credits. It's fine, but obviously there's not much there, with it only clocking in at less than a minute. Then it's live at the Grog Shop in Cleveland on October 18th. At the start of the tape, there is some audible interference, but it sorts itself out by the start of Rock and Roll Star. Speaking of Rock and Roll Star, Liam is definitely trying really hard, with good and bad results. Liam overall is good on this song, especially on the chorus. Then it's Columbia, which is a bit rocky, but that's probably because of the audio quality. Then it's Fade Away, which is definitely not one of the best, but still fine, just Liam is not blowing me away yet. Then it's Dixie's Dinner, and Liam is definitely getting into the swing of things by this point. Then it's Shaker Maker, which is very good, and dare I say it, one of the best Shaker Makers I've heard in a long time, probably the best from this American leg. He also sings the Coca-Cola line. Then it's Live Forever with the line, I don't really want to know how your mother grows. Overall, again, it's fine. Then it's Bring It On Down, with Noel going mental on the riff. Liam once again is fine, but nothing we haven't heard before. Then it's Up in the Sky, with Liam's voice being crackly, but at least he's trying the falsettos, which is very rare even in this era. Then it's Slide Away, and it's very impressive. Probably one of the best from this leg, just like the Shaker Maker. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol, and yeah, I've become accustomed to this gig, but there's nothing to this version. He also misses the ending, You Gotta Make It, and You Gotta Fake It. Then it's Married with Children, which is fine once again, just nothing crazy like most of this gig. Then it's Supersonic, and yeah, Liam's voice is struggling, but I like that. One of my favourite Supersonics from this leg for sure. Then it's I'm the Walrus, which is, again, fine. Again, nothing too crazy, but it's nice to know Liam puts his all into the final song. Then it's an interview with Liam and Bonehead on CFNY Radio on October 19th. Then it's live at Sunrise Records Store on the same day. Now, they played Shaker Maker, but I believe every widely circulated copy has the intro to Shaker Maker cut with its beginning at Mr. Clean and Mr. Ben. Liam's vocals are very soft as it's an acoustic set. He's very good as the previous wasn't anything great, so it's nice to hear something different and refreshing every now and then. Obviously it includes the Coca-Cola line. Then it's Live Forever with Noel doing the You and I Are Gonna Live Forevers, and it's a very good version. As I said, it's nice to have an acoustic set every now and then, even if it is short. Then it's Married with Children, and wow, what a version. Probably the best I've heard in a long time, as I've never really been a fan of the electric versions. So yeah, very short but sweet 3-song set. It appeared on the bootlegs Noel's House Party, Unplugged Volume 2 and bonus tracks on Live at Juno 94. Then it's a gig at Lee's Palace on the same day. It starts with, you guessed it, Rock and Roll Star, and Noel. My good buddy Noel, stop doing backing vocals on this song. You just sound constipated and overall irritating. Apart from that, Liam is definitely on it already, which you don't get very often, so yeah, off to a good start. Then it's Colombia, and a surprising turn of events. Liam is actually doing the yeah yeah yes, but yeah, a fine version, you gotta love it. I mean, you can't grumble when it's peak Liam doing Colombia. Then it's Fade Away, and it's not the best we've heard, I can't lie. The problems I have now is I've heard these songs so many times, I can't tell what's good and what's bad anymore. It's just generic in my eyes. Then it's Digsy's Dinner, and fuck yeah, Liam is going for it and succeeding, even though his back in doesn't plunder in this song. Very good. Then it's Shikamaker, and he's very good, but I don't know why he sounds like he's trying to sound like him on the studio version, which isn't a bad thing, just that can make him a bit worse sometimes. Let's Live Forever, which is fine, and Liam is definitely trying. Let's Bring It On Down, and this is the best one I've heard from this leg. So good. Everyone's on form, even Tony. Let's Up in the Sky, and it's shocking to hear Liam actually going for it on Up in the Sky. It's a very rare sight, but when you see it, it's magical. Let's Slide Away, and Liam is how he usually is on this song, plus a lot of shouting. Brilliant. His Take Me There's are amazing also. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol, which is once again very good. Then Liam says Supersonic, but Noel corrects him saying Married with Children. Liam then remembers and then corrects himself. It's a fine version, I quite enjoy this version compared to others from this leg. Very good. Then some heckler blurts something out, and Noel jokingly says, you're fucking funny you mate. You should be on cable TV and have your own show. Then it's Supersonic, which is very good, and Liam comes very close to how he does in the studio version, albeit faster. Then it's I'm the Walrus, which is very good, and Liam has definitely been preparing his voice for this. Absolutely brilliant gig. Dare I say it, better than the Metro, although that definitely doesn't go for all songs. Clips of the show appeared on the show New Music. Speaking of New Music, on the same day, Noel and Boned did an interview on New Music. The interviewer introduces them as temperamental, and that she's keeping them waiting jokingly. We then actually get to the interview, and Noel says to the interviewer, if you say you're going to arrive on 9, you are my slave for the day. She asks Noel why you think definitely maybe it's the fastest selling debut album in the UK. Noel simply says because it's good. Noel mentions the backstage of big music venues. It's just really childish with camper vans and rivalries. Then we have 4 lost gigs, which almost likely for the set is present in this October leg. So the first is on October 21st at the local 186 in Alston. Then on October 22nd at the Met Cafe in Providence. Then on October 23rd at JC Dobbs in Philadelphia. Then on October 26th at the 930 Club in Washington. Then it's live at MTV 120 Minutes again, but this time in America. Now the master tape, which is the one I went off, starts off with an interview with Noel and Boned. Boned talks about the start of the band and how they only had 3 songs and were only a 4-piece until Noel joined and wrote the songs. Noel says that he's been playing since he was 11 and Boned has been playing since he was 14. They then talk about the King Tut's story where they forced the bouncers to let them in. He then goes on to say Alan McGee was in the crowd. They had no sound check and only did 4 songs. Also, they had only been gigging for 6 months and mainly in Manchester. They then talk about in America it was easier than expected and how all Manchester bands sound the same except New Order, and that Noel thinks they're the first rock and roll band from Manchester. They then said that the Common had probably been expecting a Smiths type band and not a 5-piece rock and roll band. They say that London took to them first, which was unexpected. They say Noel had just recently moved to London. They then talk about the mixing and how they mixed it at first and didn't have a clue how to mix, so ended up breaking every rule in the book, and then they had to get a real mixer called Owen Morris to do it for them. Then the interviewer asks about the Inspirals, asking if they helped them, to which they laugh and say, have you heard any of their records? Do you hear any similarities? Noel says he never cared about the producing and that it's boring. The interviewer then asks, what do you think about all these comparisons, to which Noel says it's an opinion, just like saying Pearl Jam sounding like Nirvana or Stones sounding like the Beatles, when they don't. He adds at saying it's just journalists paid to make things up. She then asks, were the Beatles your inspiration? And they say, yes, yes. They then start talking about the music and how the whole band tinker about with it, but they don't write it. Noel then says music comes first, then lyrics. He adds saying he doesn't think his lyrics are comparable to John Lennon or Morrissey, and that he never wanted to be a writer, but that it just happens. They then say that the British music press will get any opportunity they have to not talk about the music. She then asks where they filmed the video for Supersonic. They reply in London. She asks, do you like making videos? But Noel replies it's the most ridiculous experience about being in a band. They then talk about trying to jump around whilst playing and wondering how the big guitarists can, but they can't. She then asks about the songs they're going to play and what they're about. Noel responds saying Rock and Roll Star is about being young and dreaming of being in a band. Live Forever is about being friends and seeing the good in people. Then he jokingly says, nah, it's about shagging. Then he says Supersonic is like the I'm the Walrus of the 90s. Then they talk about the rest of the gigs they're going to do in America and where they're going to do after America. Then they do introductions to the show, doing 2 takes for 120 minutes and 1 take for Alternative Nation with Kennedy on MTV. That is the actual songs, with the first being Rock and Roll Star. Now Liam sounds just like he does on the studio version. It's epico. You gotta love this version, it's just so good. Noel is struggling a bit, but overall he's fine. Also Tony is going ham on the drum. There's Rock and Roll Star Take 2, which has all the positives from Take 1, albeit a bit better in my opinion, with Noel's backing being a major example. There's Live Forever, and Liam's voice is a bit dodgy on this one. Not terrible, just not the best I've heard from him. Apart from that, what I said previously fits this as well. Then it's Live Forever Take 2, with Liam being a bit better, and Noel just being Noel. I think the best person here is Tony. Then it's the Supersonic, and I've heard good things. People have said that this is the best version of Supersonic, and, you know, it is very fucking strong. Probably not the best, but yeah, very fucking good. Very biblical. Mega. This appeared on the bootlegs Grog Shop 94, only Live Forever, Take 1. Rare TV appearances, only Supersonic Cut, and Live Forever, Take 1. The main event, only Supersonic, and Nebworth Supernova, only Supersonic Cut, and Live Forever Take 1. It also appeared on the CD MTV 120 Minutes Live, only being Supersonic. Let's get at Maxwell's Hoboken on October 28th. It starts with Rock and Roll Star, and unfortunately, only at the end is just Rock and Rolls exist, missing out most of the song. Then it's Columbia, and Liam is a bit scratchy, especially on the yeah yeah yeahs, but overall he's fine. Then it's Fade Away, which again is a bit scratchy, especially on the aways, but not bad by any means. Then it's Dixie's Dinner, and Noel is doing epically on the guitar. I don't know why, but Noel's vocals seem more present than Liam, but that might have just been due to the positioning of the person taping. Then it's Shaker Maker, and Liam is going for it, not being very good. I feel as if he reserved his voice, he would have sounded better. Then it's Live Forever, and Liam is gearing up. Sure, his voice is still struggling during the chorus, but you can tell he's at least building up his voice. Then it's Bring It On Down, and Jesus H. Christ Tony. Tony's going ham on the drums. This performance is a proof that Tony was good and Noel was a knob. Liam is a bit dodgy, but I think that kind of fits this song. Absolute legendary version, just for Tony's drumming. It's Up in the Sky, and it's great. Sure, Liam isn't doing the falsettos, and it isn't great, but it is what it is. It's to be expected when they've got a relatively big gig the next day. Let's Slide Away, and to be honest, I think this is the best song from this gig we've heard so far. Liam is on form, Noel is on form, the whole band is on form, then Cigarettes and Alcohol, and yes, Liam. So good. Nothing has really been crazy, but it's clear that Liam is going for it and succeeding this time. Liam then says, "Oi Elvis, stop pushing all these people about due to the guy trying to create a mosh pit." There's Married, which misses the start due to the tape being turned to the other side. It's fine once again, but like the others, nothing shocking. Then it's Supersonic, and it's pretty good. Like before, I'm not crazy over it, but I can still appreciate a good performance, even if it isn't making me jump around. Then it's On the Walrus, and again it's fine. I feel like each gig Liam is gearing up for this song, so there's never really been a gig where I thought the On the Walrus sounds dodgy, but because it's always fine. Top gig. Now here's some notes by the taper Fidiux Frey. I remember this show as being incredibly loud. Maybe it was just that tiny room, but I've seen other shows there and no one else was this loud. Sometimes a built-in compressor can be a good thing. Seriously drunken punters in the audience. Some idiot dumped a beer on Noel. Liam looked like he wanted to kill. Some dude with a quiff kept trying to start a mosh pit, thus Liam asking for Elvis to knock it off. An English army turned up to this gig, including Paul Gallagher and several of his mates. By the time the band were on stage, everyone was mad for it, the beer flowing freely. The tiny venue was packed and the folks from home gave the gig an intimate family feel. Then it's a gig at Wetlands on October 29th, being the final gig in this American leg of the Definitely Maybe tour. It begins with Rock and Roll Star, and he's absolutely phenomenal. Even Noel is doing great. The projection from both of them is great. A brilliant start to the gig. Then Liam starts threatening one of the audience members. Then it's Columbia, which is one of the best I've heard. The progression of Liam's voice just from this one leg of the Definitely Maybe tour is quite impressive. Very good. Then it's Fade Away, and yes, Liam is good and Noel is on form. Sure, Tony wasn't as good as Badokan, but I guess he's just reserving it for Bring It On Down, as that is a tough song to drum. Then it's Dixie's Dinner, and oh my fucking god. Go on Noel, go on Tony, go on Gwigsy, go on Bonehead, go on Liam. The whole band is amazing. Then Sugar Makeup, which is again one of the best I've heard in a while. Then Step Forever with Liam saying, this one's for everybody. Liam is so good and Tony is going ham on the drumming. One of my favourite versions of Live Forever, probably of all time. Liam then has a go at an audience member saying, we're Oasis Elvis and we don't have a song called Where She Goes, so if that was little wit, we'll let you off. Then it's Bring It On Down, and nice one Tony. Liam and Noel look cool and the singing is once again top notch. Then it's Up in the Sky and Liam is going for the falsettos, and I say he accomplishes them. Then it's Slide Away and he's a bit scratchy, but who could blame him? He's just banged out a load of songs consistently. He's allowed to have at least one still decent but scratchy song. He's still really good. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol, and he's straight back into the swing of things. Go on lad, another epico song from this gig. There's Married with Children, and once again he's jumping up and smacking the roof and sticking up there. Then it's Supersonic and Tony is going ham, Liam is going ham, amazing once again. Noel then says, anyone like the Beatles, because here's I'm the Walrus, and Liam is a bit scratchy. First time I've ever said that about I'm the Walrus, I think. Apart from that, it's fine, with Liam just standing there not doing anything after 3 minutes. Liam sounds nice. And in a surprising turn of events, Liam says, considering this is the last gig in America, we'll do another one for you. Noel says to the audience, what do you want to hear, Rock and Roll Star? Liam then replies, Rock and Roll Star, yes. Another fun performance which leads us to a good end to a good leg of the Definitely Maybe tour. This appeared on the bootlegs New York City and Fade Away, and it also appeared on Definitely Maybe DVD with Up in the Sky being the song of choice. A full VHS recording of this gig exists. There's the actual broadcast day, October 30th, of the MTV 120 Minutes performance featuring Take 2 of Rock and Roll Star, Take 1 of Live Forever and Supersonic. Then it's an Oasis documentary of sorts called With Oasis, aired on October 31st on Granada. It introduced by John Robb, who says that they've tricked the British press. The fans are then interviewed and are called the best band and the leaders of the new wave. We then see footage from the Virgin Megastore playing Shaker Maker, which is the only footage that we have from this gig. We also see them signing vinyls and CDs. We then see Noel saying, we had to stay half an hour long, but you gotta do that for your fans, because without the fans you are nothing. Then we see footage from the Buckley Tivoli gig with the infamous coconut stall before Dixie's Dinner. We have a short segment with Liam and Noel before we see a segment of the Supersonic video. Then Noel talks about Spike Island and how after Spike Island and the Stone Roses, the people who had grown up since then see something in them. Then it's a clip from the Tivoli again with Live Forever being shown this time. Then it's an interview with both Liam and Noel separately. Then it's backstage in the Virgin Megastore with Liam having a go at someone saying, we'll do sad song last if you want to play a silly game. Then the rest of it is in the interviews with both Liam and Noel separately. Then it's an FNAC in-store session, starting with Up in the Sky. Now it's an acoustic version with Liam actually attempting the falsettos, going for a much softer approach to the songs than he usually would live. A very nice little version. There's Dixie's Dinner, which again has this light but very relaxing sound to it. Then it's Shaker Maker with, once again, it having that same sound to it, and that rawness, which is always nice. Then it's Live Forever, with Liam and Noel continually saying this one's called Live Forever back and forth, before they actually play the song. And again, I have nothing else to add than what's already been said. It's some cracking 4 songs, and done really well. These appeared on the Chasing the Sun reissue, definitely maybe. Then it's them live at Top Live on radio on the same day. It starts with Rock and Roll Star. My first thought was Liam is sounding a lot cleaner here than he did in America, which is good, as in America he was a bit scratchy quite a lot of the time. Then it's Shake and Make-Up, with Noel being better than Liam at points, especially at the R's. Let's Live Forever, and Liam was going for that first O's. Clearly Liam was feeling very confident, and it paid off, especially during the You and I Gonna Live Forever parts. Let's Fade Away, and again Liam is very strong. Same goes for Noel as well, cracking version. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Liam is going strong, but Noel is going stronger. Noel's best backing vocals I've ever heard on this song. Then it's Supersonic, which is very good, with the guitar end being out of this world. Liam is as good as ever. Then it's an I'm the Walrus, which is actually the longest version they ever did, clocking at around 12 minutes long. Anyways, onto the actual song. It is again very good, and it's definitely up there with the likes of the Metro version. This appeared on the bootlegs Paris 94 and demos. Live footage 2-track promo, only Rock and Roll Star and Shaker Maker. Live footage 4-track promo, only Rock and Roll Star, Shaker Maker, Fade Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol. Definitive, only Fade Away, and Hot in the City, only Fade Away. Footage of this also appeared on an interview with Liam and Noel. Speaking of that interview, on the same day, a short clip of an interview with Liam and Noel happened with the aforementioned gig. Then on November 3rd, there was a gig at Lerenuf. Liam is good as always, and even Noel is good. It's clear that Noel is starting to become more confident, and in turn better at singing. Then it's Colombia, with the intro selling it as a good version. I don't even need to hear Liam, but alas we hear him, and he's a bit ropey, but still gets through it. Now it's Fade Away, and Liam is getting into grips with the gig. He's had a hard couple of months, so I do let him off when he sounds mediocre, but still listenable. Then it's Digsy's Dinner, and again it's fine, but for me, Digsy's each gig feels repetitive, and I feel there's nothing else you could bring to it. Then it's Shaker Your Maker. I know, again, another fine version, but not crazy performance from all the bands, not just Liam. I feel I only focus on Liam and Noel, and not of the others, but there isn't really much to talk about, especially in Gwigsy's case. Sorry, Gwigs. Then it's Live Forever, which is another one where I repeat myself. Yes, it's great, to be honest. You can't really fail on Live Forever, especially with Liam's voice in 94. Let's Bring It On Down, and go on Liam. Reeling it in for the audience. Cracking version of Bring It On Down for sure. Then it's Up in the Sky. Liam is definitely trying on this one, which he doesn't do often, and I say he's very good. Good on you, Liam. You just keep going, up and up. Then it's Slide Away, and once Liam is giving his all and succeed. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol, and again, Liam and the whole band is great, especially Tony. He's going mad on the drums like usual, and then it's The Electric Married with Children, which I've never really liked, and always preferred the more chilled and slower paced studio version. Then Supersonic, and I know I've said it 1,000 times over, but this might be one of my favourites. The way Liam is shocking, and I never thought we would get even February 94 Liam back, but there you go. Then it's I'm the Walrus, and it's a very short version, only being 4 minutes long compared to the usual 9 minutes. Liam is definitely trying, and definitely winning. Very, very, very good gig indeed. Then it's an interview with Noel on MCM in Paris on November 4th. Then the interviewer asks Noel, how can rock be corrupted? To which Noel calls Bernard, saying he could probably give you a good answer. Bernard then comes and makes some strange noises, then leaves. Then on the same day, it's a gig at La Cigale in Paris. It starts with Rock and Roll Star, and it's better than Lerenuf, but with Liam going mental on the chorus. You can hear it in his voice. Very good, and I know I've said it 1,000 times over, but probably one of my favourites. That's Colombia, which is again very good, but Liam isn't going as crazy, but I get why, as Colombia is a more chilled out song. Let's Fade Away, and again it's not shouting at the top of your lungs like Rock and Roll Star, but he's putting in a lot of energy in these songs, especially rather than in the previous gig. Let's Digsy's Dinner, and holy moly, I've never heard the whole band try this hard on Digsy's. Truly a refreshing version of Digsy's right there. The vocals are phenomenal, with Liam and Noel singing alongside one another. The best Digsy's in my opinion, apart from Liam voice cracking during These Could Be the Best Days part. Then it's Shaker Maker, and again very good on the whole band. Liam is performing the Shake Along With Me's very well. Then it's Live Forever, and this version is very much like the studio version, which I love. It's very reminiscent of early '94 when his voice hadn't been strained from the touring, apart from Liam's voice cracking badly during Just Don't Believe. Let's Bring It On Down, and Liam is once again very good, but nothing can top Tony. Tony's going really good like usual, but he always reserves his energy for this song as it pays off. Then it's Up in the Sky, and I'm sorry to say it, but Liam's voice can't handle the falsettos anymore. He's reached the point of no return for this tour. Let's Slide Away, which is again very good, and Liam is once again giving it his all. Let's Cigarettes and Alcohol, and yes, Liam, bringing it back round to how he was in Rock and Roll Star, where he's shouting at the top of his lungs. Let's Bury the Children, which is like every previous version of, and I've already voiced my voice, but I feel every version is mediocre. Then it's Supersonic, with Liam not being the best. He's been all through this gig, but it's still listenable. Then it's I'm the Walrus, and a go on Liam. It's clear he's strained by the end of this gig, but he's still fine. This appeared on the bootleg's Bonjour Paris, definitive, with only 3 tracks, with these being in the order of Rock and Roll Stuff, Marriage to Children, and Shake and Make It. Strangely enough, Hot in the City with only Dixie's Dinner, and Paris 94 with more, with the only track being Dixie's Dinner. Footage of this featured on Faxo. Speaking of that Faxo TV appearance, it aired on the same day and featured an interview with Liam and Bonehead. Then it's 3 lost gigs, which all probably had this leg's set list. The first is at Transborder in Lyon, France on November 5th. Then it's at the Theatre du Moulin in Marseille on November 6th. Finally, they were live at the Q Awards in London on November 9th. Then it's live at the Palladium in Stockholm on November 16th. It starts off with Rock and Roll Star, and it's a good version. A good start to a gig with Tony going crazy on the drums. Then it's Colombia, and to be honest, this is one of the more strongest ones from this last leg. Again, another good version. Let's Fade Away, which again is very good, and Liam is certainly trying. Then it's Digsy's, which again is very good, with Liam shouting to the top. Then it's Shake and Make It, which another very good rendition. Then it's Live Forever, which is a bit ropey, but they get through it. Let's Bring It On Down, which is again very good. Then it's Up in the Sky, and Tony is going mental on the drums, which isn't something I'd expect from him on this song. In terms of vocals, they're fine. Then it's Slide Away, which is phenomenal. Then it's Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Go On Liam. Liam is going all for it and succeeding. And it's a hard song to sing at the top of your voice. Trust me, I've tried it and I've failed. Then it's Married to Children, and I know I'd just be repeating myself, but I have literally just said the same thing about this gig. But yeah, it's alright. Then Supersonic, which is like the ending before the ending, as of course it's I'm the Walrus to end the night. Another very good rendition to end a pretty decent gig for the most part, although this is pretty forgettable. Then it's 4 lost gigs, which probably has the same setlist as this entire leg. It starts with them being live at the Q Club at Gothenburg in Sweden on November 17th. Then they were live at the Dairy in Lund on November 18th. Then it was at the Loft in Berlin on November 20th. Finally, they were live at the Mark Hall in Hamburg on November 21st. They then played a gig at Batschkap in Frankfurt on November 23rd. It starts with the Rock and Roll Star as per usual, and I will say it is stronger than the previous gig. That's Colombia, and the guitar in is pretty strong. Unfortunately, Liam sounds like he has a cold during this song. Let's Fade Away, which again has the same problem where he sounds like he's got a blocked nose. However, Tony is going wild on the drums. Then it's Dixie's Dinner, and Liam is sounding better, but for a lot of the song, Noel is having to sing along with him to help him. Then the crowd shout Bring It On Down, but as they start playing Shake and Make It, someone is heard going, "Ah." Anyways, onto the actual song. It's fine, but no one, not even Tony, is too great. Let's Live Forever, and Liam is very strong. He's going stronger than he has in the past couple of gigs. Very good version. Then is a tease for the Cigarettes and Alcohol with the opening riff played. Then it's Bring It On Down, and Liam's voice is a bit raspy. It's really apparent, but I think that kind of benefits the song. Then the crowd starts singing Happy Birthday. Then it's Up in the Sky, and it's clear that Liam is at least attempting some of the falsettos. Then it's Slide Away, which is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful renditions of the song. Absolutely brilliant. Then Cigarettes and Alcohol with Liam struggling a tiny bit, but who can blame him? It is a tough song to sing. Then it's Married to Children, and it's a good little version, but not one I'd go crazy over. Then Supersonic, which again is fine, but you expect something generic nearing the end of a gig. Then it's On the Walrus, which is a very strong performance from the whole band, especially guitar and wise. Then it's a Lost gig at the Luxor in Cologne on November 24th. It probably has the same set list as this entire leg. Then it's an interview with Gwigsy on November 25th. Then it's a gig at the Paradiso in Amsterdam on the same day. It starts with Fade Away, strangely enough, and Liam is lacking a bit. Not massively, but it is noticeable. Then it's Dixie's Dinner, which is another great performance of this classic song. Then it's Shake and Makeup, which is an improvement from the previous gig, in my opinion, but not by much. Then it's Live Forever, which again is good. You could probably tell that I've run out of things to say, as I'm saying I've run out of things to say again. Sorry, it's just listening to so many gigs, which are all the same songs, can be draining. Let's Bring It On Down and Up in the Sky, with both renditions being fine. This appeared on the bootleg live in 1994, Volume 2. Then it's a Lost gig at the Zech Karl in Essen on November 27th, which probably has the set list from this leg and not the previous one. Then it's a gig at the Botanique in Brussels on November 28th. Bernard announces rock and roll star in a comedic accent. Anyways, the actual song is fine, but due to the position of the taper, Noel is a lot more present, whereas Liam is hard to hear, but you can still hear putting in the effort, especially at I Live My Life for the Stars That Shine. There is some hiss, but this disappears near the end. That's Columbia, and it's another good one. Liam is doing good, and even Noel, I'd say, is doing some of the best vocals he's ever done on this song. Let's Fade Away, which is, and you can tell Liam is going for it. Then it's a very strong gig to listen to, especially this early on. The rest of the gig has the same energy, but at the end of the day it's pretty forgettable. Then it's live at Guildhall in Southampton on November 30th. Now we actually have footage for this one, and it's off the whole gig. It starts with a pretty generic rock and roll star. Then again, a pretty generic Columbia. Again, this is recurring. Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Shake and Make, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Mad with Children. But then we get to Sad Song, which is the start of Noel's acoustic playing. It's a very impressive version of Sad Song, with Noel's soft vocals set in this short acoustic kind of set in stone. The audience even start clapping through it. Then it's Do You Want to Be a Spaceman, which gives very somber and nice feelings. Another very good acoustic song from Noel. Then it's the first Whatever played at a public gig. Again, another very good version indeed. There's a speedy Supersonic and a mediocre I'm the Walrus. This appeared on the bootlegs This Guy's in Love With You, which was a bonus disc with copies of 3 Days After and Do You Feel the Daydream. The Cigarettes and Alcohol from this gig also appeared on the Definitely Maybe DVD. Another alright but pretty forgettable gig all the same. Then we move on to December, which is the final month of 94 if you didn't know. I'm just kidding, but yeah, we are nearing the end and to the start of December 1st. They played a gig at the Octagon in Sheffield. I'm sorry, but for this gig, again, it feels very generic until you get onto Sad Song. Those songs are Rock and Roll Star, Columbia, Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Shake and Make, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Mad with Children. So as said, Noel implements a short acoustic segment to the gig, which I think is very new, and sort of allows for the gig to not be so generic, as listening to so many gigs can make you bored after a while. Anyway, Sad Song, which is another very soft but great rendition from Noel. Then it's Do You Want to Be a Spaceman, which is in a similar vein to Sad Song. Then it's Whatever, which is just a feel-good song, which has the whole crowd pleased. Then it's Supersonic, which again is very generic, but much the same with I'm the Walrus. Another mediocre and forgettable gig. This appeared on the bootlegs No Easy Way Out and Thief and Magpie. Then it's a gig at the Corn Exchange on December 4th, and the recordings for this are a bit unknown, with Dixie's Dinner being attributed to this gig, even though it's from the Paradiso Neverlands gig. There's a Columbia and Live Forever also attributed to this gig, but this is the same source as the Story gig, which in an interesting turn of events, both are actually from the Metro soundboard. Then there's a piece of French TV on December 3rd about them, just probably as a shoot with the band messing around. It has footage from the Top Live session. Then on December 5th, it's the music video shoot for Whatever. The video was filmed in a white room in black and white Malcolm Ryan Studios in London, with members of the London Session Orchestra being visible throughout the video. Then it's live at Jules Holland on December 6th. This short set begins with a rendition of Whatever with Bonehead on acoustics and a whole orchestra playing alongside them. Liam's mic has some echoey sound to it, which I really like. Then it's a rendition of Sad Song, which is just Noel and a guitar, but with the professional clean microphone, and it sounds amazing. Probably one of the best versions he ever did. There's a rendition of I'm the Walrus to finish off the show. This appeared on the bootlegs Live 1996 and Definitive, with Sad Song being first instead of Whatever, with Whatever being the song after then I Am the Walrus, due to it coming from NICAM stereo TV broadcast. It also appeared on the Definitely Maybe DVD, which was only Sad Song. The 10 Years of Later DVD, which was only Whatever. Later with Jules Holland present, Cool Britannia, which was only I Am the Walrus. The I Am the Walrus was briefly broadcast on the BBC during a show called Sing the Beatles. The Whatever rendition was uploaded to YouTube by BBC Music. Then it's a lost gig at Barrowlands in Glasgow on December 7th. Then it's 2 cancelled gigs, with the first being at the Town Hall in Middlesbrough, and was supposed to take place on December 8th. The next one was supposed to be at the Royal Court in Liverpool on December 9th, with the first being rescheduled for December 30th, and the latter being rescheduled for the 17th. Then it's the broadcast date of Jules Holland on December 10th. Then it's a gig at the Civil Hall in Wolverhampton, and they said this is a bit strange, and you'll see why later. A lot of generic stuff we've heard before in the set. The songs in question are Rock and Roll Star, Columbia, Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Shake and Make, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Married with Children. Of course, Sad Song is somewhat different with the acoustic segment starting. The crowd are clapping along to this amazing rendition of Sad Song, although can you really go wrong with Sad Song? Not really. No messes up on the second just the same. When he instead sings, stays the same, and the same goes for the third one as well. Do You Wanna Be a Spaceman has been removed from the set, and it goes straight into Whatever. Before the song starts, however, Liam says thanks for bringing the album to number 1. Anyways, it's another great rendition of Whatever, with Liam's voice being a lot softer than usual, especially for the electric version. Then it cuts to Supersonic and goes straight into I'm the Walrus, which is, like any other version you've heard. This appeared on the Bootlegs Definitive 2 with Columbia, Daisy's Dinner and I'm the Walrus being omitted, Up in the Sky with Columbia, Daisy's Dinner, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Sad Song and I'm the Walrus being omitted, Supernova, Cigarettes and Alcohol with Daisy's Dinner and Shake and Maker being omitted, and Earl's Court Show 1. It also appeared on BBC Transcription Disc in Concert 620 and was rebroadcast twice on BBC 6, the first being in 2012 and the second in 2017, both being hosted by Chris Hawkins. Now on to the aforementioned Astoria gig, which is still lost. Then it's a gig at the Hammersmith Palais in London on December 13th.
Oasis arrive in Hammersmith, London to play the Hammersmith Palais. This was a popular venue in the mid-1990s for up-and-coming rock bands to put their stamp on the England capital, and Oasis do no different tonight. The performance is a really consistent one tonight, with the same energy being piled in by the instruments. I would also say it seems to be Liam's best show of the UK tour so far. He does really well tonight, particularly on Slide Away and Married with Children. The stage is decked out with Christmas trees as the Christmas day nears, and there's an even bigger treat tonight. For the first time ever, the band bring the string orchestra out on tour, which will become a big part of their future shows in the UK and Ireland on following tours. This showed that they were becoming an unstoppable force, and any doubters of this were duly silenced. The strings are used on Whatever and I Am the Walrus, so as such, Whatever and Supersonic have been switched around, so the string members don't have to come off and back on a song later. This also means that Tony does a nice long drum intro into Supersonic, while everyone else comes back on stage. Liam also references All Young Blues on Whatever, something which had always been an idea to include in the song, but was removed for similar reasons why the Coca-Cola verse in Shaker Maker was removed in the studio.
This appeared on the Bootlegs Rock and Roll Stars and All the Young Blues. The Columbia also appeared on the Definitely Maybe DVD due to the whole gig being recorded. Then is an evening session at Maida Vale Studios on December 15th. It starts with It's Good to Be Free as a kind of tease for its final release on the Whatever EP. It's a very good rendition and it shocked me just how good it was. That's Married with Children rendition, which is strange but it's electric. But it's in a studio so it still gives me that raw vibe. Very good all the same. There's an acoustic rendition of Sad Song, which is in a very similar vein to the actual studio version. Then it's the first ever Talk Tonight, again acoustic. It's a very good rendition, especially since it's the first time we've heard it. Then it's Whatever, which is very good, and Liam is clearly going for it. It seems to also have the recording of the orchestra playing in the background to create the illusion of the orchestra being present. It also has All the Young Blues at the end. Then it's I'm the Walrus with Bonehead saying thank you all by the album. It's a very good version, similar to the Sawmills version we talked about a lot earlier in this video. This appeared on the bootleg Cigarettes and Alcohol with I'm the Walrus omitted, A Year in a Life Talk Tonight with I'm the Walrus omitted, Definitive with Only It's Good to Be Free and Talk Tonight, Finsbury Friday with Only Talk Tonight, The Legendary Unplugged Show with Only Sad Song, and Talk Tonight and The Remains of the Day with It's Good to Be Free omitted. It also appeared on the BBC transcription disc, The Mix 117, with the songs on that being Sad Song, Talk Tonight and I'm the Walrus, and it was also on BBC transcription disc, The Mix 119, with Whatever, It's Good to Be Free and Married with Children. It was also rebroadcast on Six Music Artist Collection, with It's Good to Be Free and Sad Song being omitted. Then on the same day they did Whatever on Top of the Pops, with them being announced by none other than Damon Albarn. Then on December 16th, Noel did a set supporting Primal Scream at Shepherd's Bush Empire in London. It starts with Shake and Maker, and it's clear Noel is trying to sing the song differently, but getting emphasis to different notes that you wouldn't usually hear Liam if Liam was singing. Then it's Slide Away, which is a very soft rendition, and I said this earlier, but when this song is acoustic, Noel is really good at it. A nice rendition. Then it's Trying to Be a Spaceman, which again is another rendition, and it's always a treat to hear this song. Then it's Talk Tonight, which is a cracking rendition of the as of yet unreleased song. Then it's Live Forever, which is a nice version in a similar vein to the Royal Albert Hall version, with him even singing the Take Two Sugars in the Tea. This appeared on the bootlegs Unplugged with Shake and Maker omitted and Unplugged Volume 2. Then it's a gig at the Royal Court in Liverpool on December 18th. Now we have some genericism with the songs Rock and Roll Star Columbia, Fade Away, DC's Dinner, Shake and Maker, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Opening Riff, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Married with Children. Then after that, it was, you guessed it, Sad Song, which is a nice refreshing song from all the rock and roll. Then it's Wanna Be a Spaceman, which is a very good version of the classic song. Another one they got me bopping my head to. Then it's Whatever, which is another good version in the roster of Whatevers. Liam seems to always get this song right, which is always good to see. They also do All the Young Blues, which is one thing I miss from the studio version. Then Supersonic and I'm the Walrus. This appeared on the bootleg's Lost Liverpool tapes, 1994. Then it's a gig at the Academy in Manchester on December 18th, and you know the drill. Let's just quickly go over the songs you've heard 1,000 times, which are Rock and Roll Star Columbia, Fade Away, Dixie's Dinner, Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Married with Children, with I guess the main thing being Shake and Maker got omitted after being in, I believe, every gig in 94. Then it's a new addition to the set, and the song in question is Take Me Away. A lot of people call this the best live version, and I'm inclined to agree, as Noel is going hard on Need a Line at the end. Very good rendition indeed. Then it's Sad Song, and it's very clean, which is a running theme for this whole gig, and again it's a very nice acoustic song. Then it's Trying to Be a Spaceman, which is again clean and as usual somber and sweet. This Whatever, which is really nice, as it's the same day that the single finally released. It featured on All the Young Blues at the end, and Supersonic and I'm the Walrus, which are, you guessed it, as you'd expect. This appeared on the bootleg's Hometown Showdown, which had two different covers. All the Young Blues Undrugged with only Do You Wanna Be a Spaceman, Take Me Away and Sad Song in that order. The renditions of Cigarettes and Alcohol, Do You Wanna Be a Spaceman, Take Me Away and Sad Song also appeared on the Definitely Maybe Chasing the Sun reissue. Then, as I said previously, the Whatever single came out on the same day. The first track being Whatever with a whole orchestra. It's a great song and a great video to accompany it. With lyrics such as I'm free to be whatever I, and you're free to be whatever you, it gives off a lot of empowering vibes. The song has been used by Coca-Cola in its 2012 campaign, celebrating its 125th anniversary, and also in Italian Vodafone commercials. It was also used by Asahi breweries for their Asahi off-beer commercials in Japan. English musician Neil Innes sued the band, claiming the song borrowed portions of his song How Sweet to Be an Idiot. Innes and Oasis settled a plagiarism lawsuit, and Innes received songwriting credit. The portion of their melodic line in question are the 8 notes that accompany the lyrics How Sweet to Be an Idiot, I'm Free to Be Whatever I, of the Oasis version, appearing 40 seconds after the start of the Innes version. Then it's Good to Be Free, which, with lyrics such as, of course, It's Good to Be Free, showing people need to have freedom and be alone every now and then to keep sane. Then it's Half the World Away, which is about someone expressing a desire to leave a stagnant life in a boring city, with lyrics such as, So here I go, I'm scratching around in the same old hole. Its inclusion as the theme tune for the sitcom The Royal Family in 1998 shot the tune up to the mainstream, and in my opinion it's well deserved, as it is an amazing tune. The end of the EP has Slide Away as a B-side, but this is just the studio version from Definitely Maybe. Now onto the international and different format track lists, with the first being the European CD, which had a radio edit of Whatever, and the actual final version. The UK 12-inch vinyl emitted Half the World Away, which I guess is a grave shame, as it wouldn't get a release on vinyl until the master plan. The 7-inch had the same as previously stated. The French single had Whatever and It's Good to Be Free, the Australian promo and cassette emitted Slide Away, and the Japanese EP has Whatever, It's Good to Be Free, Fade Away, Listen Up, Half the World Away, and I'm the Walrus, live at the Cat House. Its chart positions were 40 in Australia, 19 in Europe, 9 in Finland, 15 in France, 73 in Germany, 3 in Iceland, 5 in Ireland, 48 in the Netherlands, 3 in Scotland, 10 in Sweden, 24 in Switzerland, and 3 in the UK singles chart. At the end of the year, it was at 67 in the UK singles chart. It reached platinum in the UK, selling 600,000 units. Then they take a short break from touring, probably due to it being Christmas time, but then they came back on December the 27th at Barrowlands in Glasgow, but unfortunately this gig is lost. Then on December 29th, it's a gig at the Centre in Brighton, and this marks the last existing gig, and the second to last gig overall of 1994. Now you know the drill, let's just breeze through the, I must say it, boring songs, which are Rock and Roll Star, Columbia, Fade Away, Dixie Dinner, Shake and Make It Live Forever, Bring It On Down, Up in the Sky, Slide Away, Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Married with Children. Then it's Take Me Away, which is a very good and soft rendition, but Noel seems to be holding back from doing his full potential, but still very good nonetheless. Let's Talk Tonight, which again feels like he's holding back, and I don't really know why. Still doesn't take away from this being a beautiful song. And then Do You Want to Be a Spaceman, and this is probably one of the better versions out of the others we've heard so far. Very, very good indeed. Then it's Whatever, which feels like the end for me. Even though it isn't the end of 94, it's a nice and sombre song, and I'd like to believe that it's the end with all the Young Blues also being a part of it. Then obviously there's Supersonic and I'm the Walrus to kill that prophecy. Then there's also I Rock and Roll Star Encore to make the actual end for 94 in terms of existing stuff, that is. This appeared on the bootlegs Good Evening Brighton and I'm the Walrus and the Rock and Roll Star Encore emitted and Encore at Brighton. The rendition of Talk Tonight also appeared on the What's the Story Morning Glory Chasing the Sun reissues. Then the final part of 94 is a lost gig on December 30th at the Town Hall in Middlesbrough. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you at 95.